Good afternoon and welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Higher Education, joint with the Committee on Education. If you wish to submit testimony, you may at testimony@council.nyc.gov. Chairs, we are ready to begin.
Good afternoon. I'm Eric Dinowitz, Chair of the Committee on Higher Education. Welcome to our joint hearing today with the Committee on Education, chaired by Council Member and former educator Rita Joseph. Today's oversight hearing is on CUNY's college preparation initiatives in middle and high schools. We look forward in this hearing to learning more about the programming offered by CUNY college preparation initiatives, as well as the evaluative data that the New York City DOE and CUNY have collected and used to judge the success and the impact of these initiatives. We're interested in the selection process used to recruit or identify DOE schools for participation in these initiatives and the selection process used to identify and enroll individual students. The demographic data for enrolled students, including gender, race, ethnicity, and income levels, are all relevant here. Furthermore, the committees are specifically and especially interested in learning how students with disabilities are accommodated in these initiatives and how students who are struggling academically are served by them. Finally, the committees also seek an understanding of what support the DOE and CUNY need to continue and to even expand these initiatives and whether there are obstacles to potential expansion. It's not often in education that we find a program that has no downside, no trade-offs, no drawbacks, none at all. I'm prepared to believe, however, that the kinds of college preparation initiatives we'll be hearing about today are exactly that. These initiatives seem to improve the status quo for everyone involved, for middle school students, for high school students, for their families, for CUNY students, for DOE teachers and administrators, and for CUNY faculty and administrators. I'm looking forward to hearing the details. I'm also particularly excited to work alongside Chair Joseph during this hearing. Chair Joseph spent her career in the classroom and deeply understands the value of education and the impact quality programs like the ones we hope to hear about today can have on our children, on their families, and on their futures. I also want to acknowledge colleagues on the Higher Education Committee who are present, Oswald Felice. I would also like to thank my legislative director, Adam Staropoli, Jenna Klaus, my chief of staff, Christina Yelamati, the committee's counsel, Regina Paul, the committee's policy analyst, and Nia Hyatt, the committee's senior finance analyst. I would now like to invite Chair Joseph to give her opening statement, after which I will swear in our witnesses.
Thank you, Chair Dinowitz, and thank you for inviting the Committee on Education to join Higher Education for this very important hearing topic. I'm Rita Joseph, Chair of the Education Committee. Thank you to everyone who's planning to testify today. I'm very much looking forward to hearing your testimony. Chair Dinowitz covers a lot in his opening remarks, so I'll be brief. Having a college education is more important than ever. It prepares students, both intellectually and socially, for a thriving career in adult life. As some of you may know, I'm a forever educator before joining the City Council. During that time, my work in public schools left me with a deep understanding of the barriers that students encounter in pursuit of their education. A strong partnership between CUNY and DOE schools is essential into offsetting some of those challenges. I applaud CUNY for its innovation programs like CUNY Explorers, which was designed to provide all DOE middle schools with a visit to a CUNY campus, promoting the belief that all students can go to college and that preparation should begin early. But it's not just about getting students to college, it's about getting them through college. Programs like College Now and Early College were designed to improve high school graduation rates as well as prepare students for rigors of college. By allowing students to earn college credits in high school, programs like these make college more accessible to our students and are especially valuable for students in underserved communities. A 2017 evaluation of early college reveals students who participated graduated high school on time at a higher rate than similar students. Early college students were also more likely to be considered college ready by high school graduation. And as a result of earning significantly more college credits, they were better positioned for college degree completion and persisted in degrees programs at a higher rate than similar students. Around 60% of our DOE high school students who attend choose CUNY College, and also 80% of first-time freshmen at CUNY colleges are DOE graduates. Not only does a strong partnership between CUNY and DOE contribute to success of New York City students, it contributes to the success of New York City. At today's hearing, I'm looking forward to gaining a better understanding of this partnership and how the city can strengthen and expand it moving forward. I am also interested in learning more about the number of early college initiative, College Now students who can earn associates and college degrees, and what can be done to better support these students. Lastly, I'm particularly interested in learning how CUNY programs are publicized to DOE students, particularly students living in temporary housing, students with disabilities, and English language learners. I'd like to thank the committee staff, my staff, for all the work they put in today's hearing. I also like to acknowledge Councilmember Ung, Councilmember Oswald Felice playing two roles today, Councilmember Hanif, and Councilmember Menning.
Thank you, Chair Joseph, for your opening statement. I would like to remind everyone who wishes to testify in person today that you must fill out a witness slip, which is located on the desk of the Sergeant at Arms near the entrance of this room. Please fill out this slip even if you have already registered in advance that you will be testifying in person today. He's going. To allow as many people as possible to testify, testimony will be limited to 3 minutes per person, whether you are testifying in person or on Zoom. I'm also going to ask my colleagues to limit their questions and comments to 5 minutes. Please note that witnesses who are here in person will testify before those who are signed into the Zoom webinar. Now, in accordance with the rules of the council, I will administer the affirmation to witnesses from the City University of New York and the New York City Department of Education. Please raise your right hand. Yes, including you two in the back, I believe. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this committee and to respond honestly to council members' questions? Great, thank you. As a reminder to all of our witnesses, please state your name prior to your testimony for the record. Andrea Sunacharn.
Andrea Sunachan? Oh, me. Should we just, all right.
Yes, you can go in order of reading your opening statements, and then we'll have committee questions.
Great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairs Dinowitz and Joseph and members of the New York City Council Committees on Education and Higher Education. I want to thank you for this opportunity to speak with you today about CUNY's K-16 initiatives. It is an honor to be here representing the City University of New York as University Dean for K-16 initiatives. I joined CUNY 3 years ago after almost 20 years supporting college access and success for New York City's young people through community-based organizations, research settings, and the New York City Department of Education. Along the way, I was able to earn a doctorate in education. Like millions of New Yorkers, I have CUNY to thank for much of this. My father immigrated to New York from the West Indies and worked his way through an engineering degree at City College. His degrees opened doors to him, empowered him to fight the bias that he often experienced as he rose through his career, and gave my family entry to economic security and a life well beyond what he ever imagined for himself. New York City has been a place of community and opportunity for my family, and I've dedicated my career to ensuring that our city remains a place where all students can envision and achieve their brightest possible future. K-16 Initiatives is a unit within CUNY's central office representing CUNY's deep investment in and commitment to our future students. and our understanding that we must work in partnership with New York City Public Schools to reach our shared goals for equity and access. Today's K-12 students are tomorrow's CUNY students. An average of 65 to 67% of incoming first-time freshmen at CUNY are recent graduates from New York City Public High Schools. Our office supports the reciprocal relationship between these two systems to help ensure that entering undergraduates are prepared for success. The unit is home to more than a dozen innovative programs that seek to prepare students for post-secondary success with strong on-ramps, including pre-college curriculum, dual enrollment opportunities, near-peer advisement, tutoring, and career-connected activities. Our programs are organized around 4 pillars that are essential to increasing access and success in higher education: building college and career aspirations, building seamless access and transition points, increasing the academic readiness of incoming students, and supporting systemic coordination. CUNY Explorers begins in middle school to build those college aspirations. We bring 6th through 10th grade students to our campuses to experience age-appropriate and customized visits. We hire and train CUNY students to work as visit guides. These guides design interactive and career-connected experiences for students that immerse them in the life of a college student. Visit activities include hands-on labs like extraction of DNA from a strawberry at Queensborough Community College, demonstration of dental hygiene clinic activity at City Tech, or flight simulation and a tour of the robotics room with the Aviation Institute at York College. Visit guides reinforce the message that all students can go to college. College is affordable, and students can take steps now to achieve their college goals. In the 2021-22 school year, CUNY Explorers hired 95 students as visit guides, conducted 685 visits, and reached 36,378 unique 6th through 10th grade students. CUNY Tutor Corps embeds tutoring into New York City public middle and high school math classrooms across the 5 boroughs while providing employment and practical career development for CUNY undergraduate and graduate students who serve as tutors. Tutors work part-time under the supervision of a host teacher. Tutor Corps provides extensive professional development and coaching for tutors that enable them to deepen their own understanding of STEM content and professionalism while providing high-quality classroom-embedded tutoring delivered by a diverse tutoring pool aligned with New York City public school priorities. Tutor Corps conducts outreach to all public schools, focused especially on high-need areas, and works with teachers and administrators to identify students who can benefit from tutoring. This year, we are partnering with New York City Public Schools to address one of the most critical issues facing our students, closing skills gaps and accelerating learning following the disruptions of COVID. We will be placing 100 tutors in 21 high schools, providing small group intensive algebra tutoring to 1,500 students. In the 21-22 school year, we hired 366 tutors, placed in 65 high schools and 45 middle schools, reaching 3,399 students altogether. These schools include many in high poverty census tracts and serve a diverse student population. Students tutored last year, 46% were Hispanic, 27% were Black, 21% had an individualized education plan, and 23% were English language learners. 88% qualified for free or reduced lunch or HRA benefits. We know that the barriers to college access and success include readiness for the academic expectations of a college classroom. Our dual enrollment and early college high school programs are rooted in decades of research demonstrating the effectiveness of early exposure to college-level work to increase college success, especially for students traditionally underrepresented in higher education. A recent literature review commissioned by New York State found that early college experiences and advanced coursework were associated with higher student achievement, college enrollment, and college graduation, and even had long-term positive effects on employment and wages after college graduation. K-16's largest program, College Now, provides an opportunity for students to earn college credits by participating in college prep courses and activities. 19 CUNY campuses partner with over 470 New York City public and charter high schools to offer courses each year. Each campus has a coordinator and support staff dedicated to the program who work closely with staff at individual partner schools to recruit and place students. In 21-22, we served nearly 22,000 students in College Now. 80% were eligible for free or reduced lunch or HRA benefits. 62% identified as female. 30% were Hispanic, 19% were Black, and 26% were Asian. 8.6% had an individualized education plan to receive special education services, and 10% were English language learners. In the fall of 2022, 24,679 New York City public school graduates entered CUNY degree programs as first-time freshmen within 6 months of high school graduation. Of those CUNY freshmen, approximately 29% had participated in College Now opportunities while in high school. College Now participants have stronger post-secondary transition and success rates compared to students who do not participate. Of the 21-22 graduates who previously participated in College Now, about 85% matriculated into college within 6 months of high school graduation. On average, these College Now alumni transfer 6.41 credits to CUNY, earn more credits in their first semester, 10.66 compared to 8.31, and have a higher GPA after their first semester than New York City public school graduates who did not participate. This academic momentum persists through graduation as College Now alumni show a 13 percentage point higher 3-year associate degree completion rate and a 7 percentage point higher 6-year bachelor's degree completion rate in CUNY than those who did not participate in the program. While many College Now courses offer opportunities to earn credit for students who have demonstrated readiness for college coursework, we've also begun to intentionally expand offerings for students who need additional support. As CUNY colleges have ended remediation, colleges have begun offering co-requisite courses in both math and English language arts. In CUNY's co-requisite model, a credit-bearing Pathways course, a general ed course unified across all of our campuses, is offered at the same time as mandatory non-credit support. Students who are assigned to developmental education in math, reading, or writing on the basis of CUNY's skill proficiency markers are all eligible to enroll in credit-bearing Pathways courses with co-requisite support. For high school students, College Now co-requisite courses provide a clear path to readiness with the benefit of earning students transferable college credits. We currently offer 11 different co-requisite math courses through 7 colleges. For many non-STEM majors, this course also satisfies the required college credit math course. We also offer a preparatory course called Linked Math for high school students to ensure that they are prepared and ready for this co-requisite math course. In the 21-22 school year, 306 students enrolled at 8 different high schools completed this 2-course sequence with a success rate of 90%. This academic year, we have 11 high schools and 475 students doing the Linked Math course sequence. Given the success rate of these courses to date and their critical importance to supporting a strong post-secondary start for students, we look forward to working with our partners at New York City Public Schools on continuing to develop and expand innovative approaches to ensuring all students have access to post-secondary opportunities while in high school. This year, we've collaborated on the design and launch of Future Ready NYC, a partnership between New York City Public Schools, CUNY campuses, and employer partners. Future Ready NYC will give students access to reimagined educational experiences with the chance to receive early college credits, industry-valued credentials in high-growth fields, including healthcare, technology, business, and education. CUNY is a major partner in this work, providing student visits to college campuses through CUNY Explorers and early college credits through College Now courses. This year, 34 high schools are partnered with 8 CUNY campuses, seeking to engage approximately 5,000 high school students. What makes Future Ready unique is that the College Now courses offered at each high school are designed around a 2 or 3 course sequence, which aligns the knowledge and skills within an industry and tied to specific high-need job titles. Designed around best practices and career-connected learning, these sequences paired with school-led work-based learning experiences, internships, and student advisement allow young people to proactively explore careers earlier and more intentionally. Our early college high schools are public schools that partner with institutions of higher ed and blend a rigorous college prep curriculum with the opportunity to earn up to 2 years of college credit while in high school at no cost to students and families. The program is designed to scaffold the transition from high school to college with additional support and make sure students are ready to jump into courses without remedial need. CUNY's Early College Initiative was established in 2003 to develop and support early college high schools. Today, we support 19 early college high schools that serve over 10,000 students. K-16 provides guidance, project management, and financial resources to create and maintain early college high schools, which are categorized into 4 models: 6 through 12, 9 through 12, 9 to 13, and P-TECH. The ECI models were designed to serve low-income first-generation college goers, English language learners, and other groups that have been historically underrepresented in higher education. In 21-22, our diverse student population included 43% that identified as Latinx or Hispanic, nearly 33% who identified as Black, and nearly 13% as Asian. The population was 47% female. 11% of students were English language learners, and 18% had an individualized education plan. 86% qualified for free or reduced lunch. Students' academic preparation upon entering our high schools is also wide-ranging, as evidenced by their 8th grade exams. In 2019, nearly 50% scored a level 1 or 2 on their ELA exams, while nearly 2/3 scored a 1 or 2 on math exams. While fully representing the ethnic, racial, demographic, and academic diversity of our city's students, ECI students graduate from high school on time at a higher rate than similar students. In 2022, our network-wide on-time graduation rate was 93.3%, compared to the citywide rate of 78.8%. The graduation rate for English language learners who entered high school in 2018 was 82.2%. Overall, 71.7% of our graduates earn college credit prior to graduation, with an average of 25.2 credits. 77.8% of graduates enroll in post-secondary education within 6 months of graduation. 2 schools offer the opportunity for students to earn their associate's degree by the end of 12th grade. Of these, 57% of the June 22 graduates at Kingsborough Early College Secondary School graduate with an associate's degree, and 40% of the graduates from Hostos Lincoln Academy for Science earned an associate's degree from Hostos Community College. The admissions process for our early college high schools is led by New York City Public Schools Office of Enrollment. Our schools have 2 types of admissions methods. The 10 P-TECH schools are educational option schools, which admit students across all academic levels with the goal of promoting academic diversity. Students are grouped into 3 equal-sized categories: low, middle, and high, based on their final 7th grade course grades. Applicants in each category are prioritized for 1/3 of seats at each school. If there are more applicants from a category than prioritized seats for that category, applicants are randomly selected using the random selection process based on their numbers. The 6 through 12 early colleges primarily enroll students at 6th grade and give priority to students and residents in specific districts where they are zoned. Most students continue into their school's high school program. High school entry does have academic screening for 9th grade seats. The grade 9 through 12 and 9 to 13 early college schools are screened for 9th grade entrance. One school is an international school for English language learners who have resided in the U.S. for 4 years or fewer. Prospective students learn about our schools through a variety of ways. New York City Public Schools publishes a high school directory each year with a wide range of admissions information. To increase diversity, school admissions are based on a ranked choice and lottery system. In 2020, one of our schools, Manhattan Hunter Science High School, launched a diversity initiative through the Office of Enrollment at DOE to give priority to applicants eligible for free or reduced lunch for 69% of seats. Each year, schools are encouraged to participate in district, borough, and citywide fairs, where they share informational materials with families and dates and times for open house tours. Schools also do direct outreach to elementary and middle schools in their district and promote their schools on social media and their websites. Our continuum of programs is capped by College and Career Bridge for All, the largest near-peer matriculation support program in the nation, supporting over 50,000 graduates annually. The program runs from June through September, supporting students from graduation from high school through their first month of college should they enroll. Bridge hires and trains current college students who largely graduated from New York City public schools and attend CUNY, and groups them in borough-based teams where they are supervised by professional counselors and experienced coaches to support graduating seniors from high schools in their community with a wide range of post-secondary planning and matriculation tasks. Bridge coaches receive extensive training in how to support students as they transition, including understanding types of degree and non-degree options, navigating college enrollment steps, and researching non-degree career programs, both at CUNY and with community-based organizational partners. Coaches meet with these partners during training and are able to support students to enroll in a strong college match or career program. College and Career Bridge for All is implemented with an intentional focus on student-coach connections. In order to foster a strong connection, coaches are matched with high school students with similar characteristics, borough of residence, language, or in high school. Through weekly outreach, Bridge coaches provide prospective students with support on completing applications, financial aid, navigating enrollment holds, uploading proof of vaccination, registering, and general social emotional guidance. The diversity of our Bridge peer mentors is key to the program's success. Of the 199 peer mentors that participated in Bridge in 2022, 147 were CUNY students. Among those, 34% were Asian, 25% were Black, 14% were Hispanic, and 13% were multiracial. In 2022, Bridge served 54,000 seniors from the New York City Public Schools class of 22, ensuring that all graduates had the support of a near-peer mentor. Of this group, 35% had substantive interaction with a mentor that moved their post-secondary planning forward. The largest impact of the Bridge program is on enrollment outcomes. In 2022, 71% of graduates served by Bridge enrolled in college in the fall, and 58% of college-bound students chose a CUNY campus. A 2020 impact evaluation found that students who connected with their coach enrolled in college at a rate 7 percentage points higher than comparable peers. The program is particularly effective for students who are Black, Hispanic, or living in low-income neighborhoods, 3 groups typically underrepresented in higher education, with those students seeing the greatest impact on enrollment from engaging with their coach. The effects of connecting with a near peer on applying to college after May is almost double for Black and Hispanic students compared to that of white students. I thank you for your interest in this important topic, for your support of CUNY's efforts to increase access and readiness for all students. CUNY K-16 programs are a national model in their scale, scope, impact, and depth of partnership with a public school system. Every day, we are working alongside our partners at the New York City Public Schools to eliminate barriers and strive towards our shared goals for all students to access promise-filled futures and economic security. The success of these efforts is the result of the collective work of many hundreds of staff and leaders, all of whom deserve great credit for what we have accomplished. We are proud of all of these successes, and we know that there is so much more to do. We look forward to our continued partnership and what we can continue to accomplish together.
Thank you, Ms. Suna-Chan. Very comprehensive. When you speak, please make sure you state your name for the record, and we look forward to hearing your testimony. Thank you.
Joanne Russell.
Oh, and I'm sorry, before you begin, I just want to acknowledge we've been joined by council members Lee, Brewer, Aviles, Barron, Ung, I saw Menon, Narcisse. Did I get you all? Yes, please, thank you.
Thank you. Chairpersons Dinowitz and Joseph, and members of the New York City Council Committees on Higher Education and Education, I am Dr. Joanne Russell, Senior Vice President and Provost at Kingsborough Community College. I'm pleased to provide information about Kingsborough's programs with New York City high schools. Although my testimony will focus on Kingsborough's College Now and Early College Initiative programs, we also have a state-funded Liberty Partnership program at the Thomas Jefferson campus in Cypress Hills that serves over 360 students who are at risk of dropping out. I'll briefly describe the College Now and ECI programs, the students served, and the outcomes. Kingsborough's College Now program is the oldest and largest College Now program within CUNY. We are celebrating 39 years of excellence in preparing students for the rigors of college academics and the transition from high school to college. In the College Now model, most classes meet in the high school either before or after the regular school day. Kingsborough also offers Saturday and summer programming in which classes are taught on the college campus. Students may earn up to 12 college credits, which will appear on their Kingsborough Community College transcript. Courses are taught by high school faculty who have met all requirements to be hired as adjunct faculty in the appropriate departments at Kingsborough Community College. Kingsborough appoints a college faculty member as a course coordinator, and this course coordinator meets with all of the College Now faculty who are teaching a particular course to provide professional development. Participating high schools appoint College Now liaisons who serve as the primary point of contact with the college and are responsible for providing information to eligible students and developing a program of coursework tailored to the student needs and interests. During the academic year 2021-2022, Kingsborough's College Now program offered credit classes in 39 New York City public high schools. With funding from the Department of Youth and Community Development's Work, Learn, Grow program, Kingsborough collaborated with an additional 69 high schools citywide to offer college transition courses that include career exploration opportunities, as well as tools for smoothing the transition from high school to college. During the 2021-2022 academic year, Kingsborough's College Now program enrolled 8,111 unduplicated students, accounting for almost 12,000 enrollments in college credit courses and college and career awareness courses. 88% of the enrolled students were successful in earning college credit. Within this same cohort, 23% of the students were Asian, 22% Black, 27% Hispanic, and 26% white. We continue to note an increase in the percentage of female participants. 62% of female students compared to 38% of male students participated in 2020-2021, a pattern that has been consistent with pre-pandemic trends. This is also sadly consistent with a national increase of female enrollment in higher education. To assist the program in recruiting and retaining male students, we have included opportunities for male students to meet with our director of the Men's Resource Center. We continue to innovate to improve our offerings. For example, we have worked to ensure that all of the classes we offer are either accepted as general education, CUNY's Pathways credit, or are part of a sequence of courses that are a pathway to a degree program. As part of the future New York City program that Andrea spoke about, we are currently offering College Now courses in 2 partner high schools that will allow students to earn 12 credits towards the AS degree in health sciences. Because the costs of textbooks are so high, we are replacing textbooks with free, high-quality open educational resources. The development of open educational resources is typically a 2-semester project that involves regular meetings between high school faculty and college faculty to build the materials and learn how to use them. This project also has the additional benefit of ensuring consistency between the college and high school faculty and supports their collaborative work. In addition to the College Now program, Kingsborough partners with CUNY and the DOE to run an early college initiative high school that's housed at the Lafayette Educational Complex, Kingsborough Early College Secondary School, or KEX. At KEX, students have the opportunity to earn an AA degree in liberal arts by the time they graduate from high school. KEX students enroll in college credit classes as part of their regular school day. These courses are dual credit courses, meaning that students earn both high school and college credit upon successful completion. For some classes, students are fully integrated with college students on the college campus. Other classes may be run with an entire section devoted to KEX students. All courses are taught by college faculty. At Keck's, about 425 students are enrolled in grades 9 through 12, 69% of whom are classified as economically disadvantaged, and 66% minorities, 32% Hispanic, 25% Black, 8% Asian, and 34% white. Prior to the pandemic, about 70% of graduating seniors had earned the AA degree in liberal arts at the same time as their high school diploma, and 80% of students had earned at least 45 credits. Understandably, these success rates have slipped during the pandemic years, so that in 2022, 56% earned their associate degree, and 66% earned at least 45 credits. We expect that these success rates will return to pre-pandemic levels. Kingsborough has been working with CUNY and the John Dewey High School to start another ECI that is focused on education studies. We are especially interested in attracting young men of color into a teaching career by working with them early in high school. I thank you for the opportunity to share this information with you today, and I'm very proud to work with my partners at CUNY and the DOE.
Yeah, you got a lot of partners up here today.
I do.
So it's looking good. Thank you. But remember, please state your name for the record. And before we begin, we've been joined by Councilmember Schulman.
Les Raphael. Excuse me. Good afternoon, members of the Higher Education Committees. My name is Les Raphael, and I am the Director of College Now and several other academic skills programs at York College. I'm pleased to have the opportunity to talk about the College Now program at York College, which is a senior CUNY college. As with all College Now programs around CUNY, York's program follows CUNY Central Office guidelines and submits an annual proposal for approval and funding. The program also works at York with the Vice President for Academic Affairs, with York College offices, with department chairpersons and faculty members, and we receive guidance and approval for the program's offerings, especially the credit classes, which make up over 97% of the classes that are offered at York. College Now at York was implemented in fall 2000 when College Now expanded to all CUNY campuses and currently works with 5 larger partner schools in southern Queens. And they are significant feeder schools to York and we enroll in our College Now program, or they enroll in our College Now program, those high schools, 100 to 500 students each academic year. Those high schools are Construction Trades, Engineering and Architecture, John Adams, Hillcrest, Richmond Hill, and the Springfield Gardens Educational Complex. In addition to these schools, York's program works with the Queens High School for the Sciences at York, which is a specialized school on the York campus that enrolls approximately 300 students a year, all taking dual credit courses, which I'll explain to you in a minute or so. And we also work with approximately 14 smaller participating high schools all around the Queens area, and they enroll around 10 to 50 students during the year, and I've listed the 14 smaller schools that work with us. It's in the report. Some of the basic guidelines and structuring of York's College Now program include we work with liaisons and representatives at our larger and smaller partner participating schools, and they plan and recruit, and they enter the students into a York-based online application. So they're doing all the recruitment. They're doing finding the students who are eligible and who they're recommending. And then from the application that they put in, the students they put into our application, we vet them and enroll them in the college credit classes. We send their names, the rosters, to the registrar's office. We also use free online educational resources, which are the free materials in about 80% of our classes, and we're pushing for more. And the rest, we do have to buy some textbooks for, but we've brought down those costs dramatically. And of course, all instructors are vetted, approved, and provided orientation and training by the appropriate academic departments. Most of our teachers are high school teachers who are eligible or meet adjunct requirements and are interviewed by the academic departments and trained. The College Now program at York, we are sensitive to the needs of students with disabilities. Although the high schools are responsible to provide those students with support services, one thing that our liaisons do is after obtaining permission from parents and the students, indicate to us which students have those kinds of needs, and we provide, with permission to our instructors, to identify that, just so they don't get, something happens in a classroom that they don't understand. And, most of our classes are at the high schools. So those who do come to the campus, and they either come just for a Saturday for a couple of hours, or like a Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday, our appropriate office at York will help in times of need. But they spend so much time at the high schools that most of those services are provided at the high school by the high schools. About the demographics, as has been mentioned before, our program has a stronger or higher percentage of females, in the 60 to 64%, and that means 40 to 35% males. And the percent of students taking College Now classes at York, when we compare them to the DOE numbers, we have a higher Asian Pacific Islanders percentage and number. We have lower for Hispanic and white students, and approximately the same for black students. One reason for this higher increase in the Asian Pacific Islander is that in our area, Southern Queens, there is a very high percentage of those race and ethnicity, mainly backgrounds from Southeast Asia, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. And if you look at the chart below, you can see the percentages, roughly 34 to 40% Asian, 29, 28% black, 22% Hispanic, and so on. And when the chart below shows the DOE numbers, and as you can see, again, our Asian Pacific Islander is higher, and our black is basically the same, but our Hispanic populations are lower. And again, I think a lot of that has to do with the area we serve, which is Southern Queens, and the percentages there. About York's offerings. Generally, the York's program offers about 50 to 60 classes per semester, and 4 classes in the summer. And we serve around 2,400 students per year. And approximately 80% of the classes are offered at the high schools. And about 20% on the York campus. Actually, before the pandemic, it was a little bit higher, 25-30% at the York campuses, either after the school day or on Saturday. Most of our College Now classes are pathway courses, which fulfill the CUNY general education requirements, or introductory major required courses. And students typically choose from common taken first-year courses like psychology, sociology, biology, history, and so on. We also have sequences of classes that lead to career paths and college majors. And we also offer those. Those offerings include sequences in education, in health, and in business. And in addition to providing the appropriate sequences of classes and advise us about those, the academic departments provide presentations to those classes about the opportunities in those fields and college roadmaps of classes needed to graduate in those areas. At York, and I think at all the CUNY College Now programs, students are permitted to earn up to 16 credits through College Now. And we offer our programs, our college classes in 3 different modalities. Either at the high schools after the school day, at the high schools during the school day, or at the college campus after the high school day or on Saturdays. These classes that are offered during the school day, we refer to them as dual credit classes. And college credit curricula are taught to specifically identified high school classes. And upon successfully completing the credit class requirements, the college credit class requirements, students earn both high school and college credit. One example would be the high school civics class is offered with a political science credit class, and they get but the teacher teaches the college credit curriculum, but the principal awards high school credit as well as getting the college credit. Our outcomes over the last 3 years have been very successful. When we look at A, B, C grades as successful outcomes, it's actually around 98%. Students withdraw, of course, but those who complete, 97, 98, 99% get an A, B, or C, and very small numbers get Ds or Fs. There are withdrawals, and students who struggle are encouraged to withdraw, but we have a very successful rate there. College Now students who matriculate at York after graduating high school earn more credits and have higher GPAs than in their first semesters than those who did not take college credit classes. If you look at the charts below, You can see, generally speaking, if they took college credit, they earn around two or so credits more in their first semester from the college than if they did not take a College Now program. And those students also have about a half a point higher GPA, which is a significant number, than those who did not take College Now before they entered your college, regular college credit card, matriculate. And each year, between 400 to 550 students from your College Now program enroll in one of the CUNY colleges after graduating high school. The following chart, it's a little busy, but it shows which colleges York's College Now program is sending students to. Just if you look quickly, for example, if you look at the first column, BMCC, that 59 means that your college sent 59 of its students to BMCC, and so on across the line. The largest numbers of College Now students who matriculate at York actually come from College Now programs at the 3 community colleges. And so, you know, across the board, we're a large program that work together and not really essentially or specifically only pulling from our own program. And then, from 2017 to 2019, there was a slight decrease in the numbers, but it really went down in 2021, as you can see, and that's because of the pandemic. And the following chart shows which College Now program are sending students to York. And again, if you read across, you can see that first one, BMCC, sent 6 students to York College to matriculate there. So we move back and forth. All of our programs work together. And I wish to thank you for the opportunity to describe York College program to you.
Thank you you seem very proud. As, I'm sure we'll talk more about, you probably should be, but thank you for your testimony.
Okay.
And I'd like to also recognize, before we continue, Councilmember Stevens. Please.
Jade Grieve. Good afternoon, Chair Joseph, Chair Dinowitz, and members of the New York City Council Education Committee and Committee on Higher Education. My name is Jade Grieve, New York City Public Schools Chief of Student Pathways. Today I am joined by Melanie Mack, Raina Utsunomiya, and Kristen Harris from my team. We are pleased to be here today to discuss our deep sense of urgency and commitment to strengthening students' college and career pathways and our partnership with CUNY to do so. Since this is the first time I'm appearing before the committees, I wanted to briefly share some background. I've spent close to 20 years in education and workforce policy and programs, starting in Australia, working for both federal and state administrations, and prior to this role, spending 7 years in the nonprofit and philanthropic sectors, working on the expansion of early college and career pathways across many US cities and states. I'm one of the many who came here, fell in love with the city, and never left. I'm also one of the many who was first in my family to earn a bachelor's degree and from an early age understood education as the critical path to changing my odds of economic success and financial security. I've been very motivated from very early in my career to expand the same educational opportunities and have dedicated my career to doing so. At the outset, we wanted to thank the Speaker and both chairs for your commitment to the expansion of early college and early career exposure and experiences for New York City youth. We welcome the chance to talk with you today about our programs, strategies, and partnership plans for the future. Chancellor Banks has set a bold North Star for New York City public schools to ensure each student graduates on a pathway to a rewarding career, long-term economic security, and equipped to be a positive force for change. In setting this goal, Chancellor Banks has not shied away from the hard truths about our graduates' college and career readiness, and New York City Public Schools is deeply committed to improving on our rate of 58% of the high school cohort graduating college ready as they transition to a post-secondary path. We would like to share the actions that we've taken over the last year to achieve better outcomes and to strengthen college and career pathways. The newly established Office of Student Pathways has identified 4 key strategies. 1, strengthening college and career advising. 2, expanding high-quality career-connected pathways and aligned internships and apprenticeships. 3, enhancing 21st century skills like financial literacy and digital literacy. And 4, extending early college credit and credential opportunities to provide more young people with a head start on their future after school. In the year since Chancellor Banks took office, we have taken significant strides towards these 4 priorities by launching and expanding the Future Ready NYC pilot with more than 30 high schools and CUNY's close partnership, the Career Readiness and Modern Youth Apprenticeship pilot in over 50 high schools, CUNY's College and Career Advising Fellows in 10 high schools, CUNY's Tutor Corps supporting 1,500 students in over 20 high schools with targeted tutoring on 9th grade algebra, and starting the planning phase of our new high-impact tutoring initiative, which will fund tutoring in kindergarten through grade 2 literacy and/or grade 6 through 8 math, depending on the school. This month, providers involved in this initiative began their work with 3,500 students across 65 schools. Both CUNY Tutor Corps as well as CUNY Reading Corps are serving as providers for these tutoring services. Under Chancellor Banks and Matos Rodriguez, there is now deeper alignment across institutional values and missions and an even stronger commitment to our shared student body, with 41% of our students transitioning to CUNY after graduation. This year, both chancellors have relaunched the New York City Public Schools CUNY Steering Committee to drive towards shared goals while collaborating on Future Ready NYC, a signature initiative for improving college and career readiness, and for providing students a strong handoff to their post-secondary pathway. As New York City Public Schools prioritizes college and career advising and awareness, CUNY is emphasizing that their middle and high school programming build college and career aspirations. Our focus on early college credits and credentials and career-connected pathways also dovetails with CUNY's efforts to build seamless access and transition points while increasing the readiness of incoming students. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here today. I will now hand over to my colleague, Melanie Mack, who will share more details on the core areas of New York City Public Schools and CUNY collaboration in support of stronger student readiness and post-secondary success.
Melanie Mack. Good afternoon, Chair Joseph, Chair Dinowitz, and members of the New York City Council Education Committee and Committee on Higher Education. My name is Melanie Mack, and I'm the Senior Executive Director of the Office of Student Pathways. I bring my heart and my experience as a New York City high school teacher and assistant principal and proud founder of 3 high schools in the Bronx and Manhattan to this role. And the topics we're discussing today are deeply important for me in the various roles I've played serving New York City students. I'm going to speak first on what Jade has mentioned about advising and awareness as a priority for New York City Public Schools. The following programs my colleague, Dr. Suna Chan, described highlight college and career advising and awareness programs for middle and high school students that reflect New York City Public Schools and CUNY's shared missions, values, and goals. CUNY Explorers, which we've heard through campus visits and workshops hosted by current CUNY students who serve as visit guides, reinforce the message to our students that they can go to college, that college is affordable, and that students can take steps now to achieve their college goals. This program supports students in grades 6 to 10 to develop a college identity, promote a college-going mindset, and encourage meaningful career exploration through near-peer mentoring and interactive workshops. Next, College and Career Advising Fellows, which launched this year. This initiative trains recent college graduates to work as full-time advisors this year in 10 of our public schools to provide personalized college and career advising. College and Career Bridge for All is a program we're offering all graduates of New York City Public Schools to have a near-peer mentor to support seamless transitions to post-secondary and avoid summer melt, including specialized referrals for students with disabilities, students in temporary housing and foster care, multilingual learners, and immigrant students. These near-peer mentors or bridge coaches are current college students, most of whom attend CUNY and are New York City Public School graduates. Next, more on what Jade touched on in terms of expanding college and career readiness and acceleration opportunities. Central to today's topic of the hearing is expanding access for high school students to college courses, which increases college and career readiness while accelerating the path to a post-secondary degree and credential attainment. Dual enrollment opportunities give students awareness and early exposure to college-level instruction, providing enrichment for students wishing to take more advanced coursework, and giving students the chance to begin earning college credit. That makes college access and exposure more real for students without having to use their own money or any financial aid while they're in high school. Through our partnership with CUNY, we're also examining the most viable ways to expand dual enrollment opportunities for students across the city. And we currently have two longstanding approaches that you've heard named: early college schools and programs, and College Now. Early college schools, as you've heard, enable students to earn both a high school diploma and an associate's degree, or up to 2 years of transferable college credit upon high school graduation at no cost to the student. The goal is to boost college enrollment rates with as little college debt as possible. Early college schools allow for students who may otherwise not pursue higher education or who are underrepresented in high-growth career fields, particularly science, technology, engineering, mathematics, STEM, to seamlessly transition from high school to college by enrolling in college classes as high school students. New York City Public Schools and CUNY have a cost-sharing memo of understanding in place to support 19 such early college schools across the 5 boroughs. This agreement is contingent on New York City Public Schools and CUNY respectively being able to secure funding each year from its own sources. Now, early college schools are just one of our strategies to make dual enrollment more accessible to our students. Starting and maintaining early college schools and programs is resource intensive and limited to students who are able to enroll in those schools. In partnership with CUNY, we're also deepening our collaboration on College Now, which offers a clear and more accessible runway for schools to participate in dual enrollment opportunities. As you've heard, College Now offers free college credit courses, pre-college courses, college and career awareness courses and activities, summer programs, STEM Research Academy, and access to CUNY campus facilities and events. College Now courses are offered before or after High School Students' Day or on Saturdays, on college campuses and in our high schools. The program serves over 20,000 students from more than 470 high schools, amounting to over 30,000 individual enrollments, and over 90% of students receive passing grades in their courses and earn college credits. Next, to high-quality career-connected pathways. The Future Ready NYC pilot that both Dr. Suna Chan and Jade have mentioned launched this school year, and it brings together system-wide best practices we've learned about career-aligned instruction, dual enrollment, and post-secondary planning. Participating schools and educators are receiving support and funding to develop labor market-aligned pathways to ensure that students are future ready. These pathways include career-connected instruction, so this is in their high school courses, that aligns to high-growth, livable wage jobs, 21st century skills, including financial and digital literacy, dual enrollment opportunities from 10th to 12th grade through early college coursework and industry-validated credentials, work-based learning, including paid employment experience, and individualized college and career advising. Based on our experience with the early college and career and technical education, or CTE schools, we are matching schools, high schools, with CUNY partner campuses, where students will have the opportunity to take College Now courses aligned to their school's career pathway focus. By creating stronger alignment between career themes and college courses, we're reimagining how to make dual enrollment more accessible and meaningful for our students. The idea of early college may evolve from serving a small number of students to a more equitable option for high school students. Now, on ensuring equity, New York City Public Schools and CUNY have established a range of important equity-centered initiatives to strengthen advising and early college awareness opportunities, as well as credit-bearing opportunities for students historically marginalized and underrepresented in college. Those include our admissions and CUNY fee waivers program. All financially eligible graduating students from New York City Public Schools applying to CUNY receive an application fee waiver. Over 50,000 waivers are distributed annually across all high schools. Waiver allocations are determined by enrollment of free and reduced lunch eligible students, with CUNY and New York City Public Schools sharing the costs of the $65 application fee. Next, the Immigrant Student Ambassadors Program. This program supports the social, emotional, and early college awareness of immigrant students in select New York City public high schools by providing trained CUNY College students to serve as near-peer mentors and small group facilitators. Ambassadors help immigrant students and multilingual learners engage in their educational journey and support them in the preparation of their post-secondary goals. Next, the Summer Intensive English Language Program is a College Now course offered in partnership with Hostos, offering an opportunity for multilingual learners to improve their English, writing, and critical thinking skills, build community, and earn 3 college credits. As the council is aware, and we congratulate you all, last week, Mayor Adams signed Local Law 18, sponsored by Chair Dinowitz, to provide additional support for students with disabilities as they prepare to enter institutions of higher education, including CUNY. We look forward to working with CUNY and the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities in implementing this law and building on our existing partnerships. One such partnership is between CUNY's Office of Student Inclusion Initiatives and the New York City Public Schools Transition and College Access Centers, which are located in each of the 5 boroughs. We look forward to a continuation of this work and deepening our connections to CUNY to better serve New York City students with disabilities through the implementation of the new local law. Now, looking across the New York City Public Schools, CUNY middle school and high school collaborations, we've laid a strong foundation of programs. They enable many students to get an invaluable start on their post-secondary path through early college exposure, mentorship, and credit-bearing opportunities. We've learned together with our CUNY colleagues about readiness, transition, and persistence in college. The road ahead with CUNY and other higher education partners is to explore affordable ways to scale early college awareness and credit opportunities and make them available to more students while ensuring that their early college work connects to what they're doing in high school and what they plan to do in post-secondary. We can do some of this by drawing from tried and true practices like expanding dual enrollment and early college credit, while learning lessons from other communities like embedding early college in student school day so that they can equitably access these opportunities. We look forward to continuing to evaluate the quality of the college and career pathways and programs we're developing collaboratively with CUNY in pursuit of our central mission of ensuring our students' long-term career success and economic security. As we continue to evaluate our current partnership and ways to grow and adapt post-pandemic to meet students' needs, we want to build on the strong alignment, partnership, and collaborative leadership of our chancellors. We thank you for your strong support and partnership and look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to ask the questions, and whoever's best able to answer them, I think should answer them. I'm not necessarily going to ask any one of you, though. I want to thank you all for your testimony. You certainly provided a robust amount of information about the programs. My first question is how are the individual schools recruited and selected for participation, and what is the role of each individual CUNY campus in that recruitment versus CUNY Central?
Just to clarify, the recruitment question is for which program?
Let's start with College Now, because I'm going to start with my College Now questions.
Sure, okay. So College Now is in nearly every public high school across the city. We're in 470 schools. So, and actually like Bridge, we really aim to be a universal program. Then on the ground, my campus partners can speak to how they locally make those relationships with partner high schools.
Yeah, we're partnering with 39 high schools, but we frequently get requests for either additional courses or perhaps for high school we may not be working in. When that occurs, we work with CUNY, who actually vets the request and looks at a number of factors, such as whether our college is best suited to provide that course or courses, the borough that it's located in, and also the cost involved.
And so it sounds like it's sort of incumbent upon a local high school to reach out to the college to say, we'd love to have College Now programs at our school. Is that?
That's not the only way. I mean, some of them reach out directly to CUNY.
What I
But
mean is
when
that
we
you-
receive
yeah.
the requests, we work with CUNY to determine how to best meet that request. We don't respond on our own at the high school.
But the question is really, but it is the DOE high school that is reaching out to CUNY or to York or to Kingsborough they are the ones that are reaching out saying, hey, we'd love this program.
Yes, initially, it was set up kind of geographically, and that was many years ago, and we all received a number of partners that made sense from Central. And then as we went along year after year, as more schools wanted to join, they might ask us, or we'd like to partner with York, and we always had it vetted through Central because,
Right.
we don't want to, we're not in competition with one another. And to see the big picture, Central has a better big picture of which schools are most appropriate geographically and for the kind of courses we offer. Does that?
Right. At this point, there are very few high schools that don't have that relationship, that have a longstanding nature. Our DOE colleagues can probably elaborate about how schools are supported, principals are supported in developing new partnerships.
How many high schools exist in New York City?
I think the number is 519, but I can double check that.
And you said 400, somewhat of them?
We have
470.
470
Have College Now
active partnerships in a given year, yeah.
And I think last year York got maybe 1 or 2 requests from a high school. I mean, most of the high schools in our area are already connected.
Could I also just build on that as it relates to the Future Ready NYC program, which is building on College Now and incorporating, as Dr. Sunachan mentioned in her testimony, building out those 2 and 3 course sequence, so through high school. And with that approach, with the selection of schools, we actually ran an open and competitive process for high schools to request and nominate to be part of that process. And very intentionally, part of how schools were selected to come into that, which by virtue of coming into that in this program, we are expanding opportunities for schools and for students to get access to dual enrollment opportunities. We were very focused on equity of enrollment and kind of where we see opportunities to grow as we look across the city.
Great. So I have a few sections I'm going to turn over to Chair Joseph, then some members, because there's a lot of robust programs. So I want to make sure that that I'm, at least in my questions, are trying to be deliberate. So I just want to talk about College Now for a little bit. So, I mean, first, it sounds like an incredible program, obviously, and all of the numbers you shared indicate its positive outcomes for the students. I just sort of want to get clarity on some of the data, though. The data you shared were that students who enroll in College Now courses have higher GPAs. That's one of the metrics usually. Have higher GPAs, acquire more credits when they get to college. How does that compare to students with similar incoming GPAs, right? So let's say in 8th grade, they have the same middle school scores, they have the same Regent scores before they get to College Now, but are in a high school that doesn't offer the opportunity for them to take College Now courses.
I don't have that exact analysis prepared. We can definitely follow up with you on that.
Yeah, please do. Thank you. I'm not sure if the leaning into the microphone means you have others. Okay, no, that's okay. But I guess, so assuming that all of these outcomes are great and they sound really good, why aren't these programs expanded more, both to more high schools and to more course offerings? What are some of the roadblocks that exist to more course offerings and to these schools, those 100 or so schools, I guess, who don't have these programs, having the programs at their schools?
There is a resource question. Obviously, we do pay the faculty for the courses, right? So as Melanie discussed, we share the costs with DOE annually for all of the credits earned and all of the courses offered. So offering more courses does come with a higher price tag. And we're really exploring strategies like dual credit that have a lower resource and some other savings, and also expand access when we offer courses during the school day or integrated into the school day that really expands into students for whom an after school or weekend program may not be accessible. Our recent work too, expanding into co-requisite and career-connected courses, is very much tied to our desire to diversify that student population and expand access to college-ready courses through College Now. My campus partners can speak a little bit to the course development process. Your question of adding a new course, there's a few steps involved in that on the campus.
We've made an intentional effort to, as Les mentioned, to ensure that the courses that we offer do count as general education credit seamlessly at any CUNY institution, or build upon a sequence of courses. So when we are, it's a conversation with the high school about what course would best fulfill that, either a sequence of offerings for that high school or another pathways or gen ed course that would round out their offerings. We also need to work, there's a few things that really are important for making the program as excellent as it is. One is being able to hire adjunct faculty who are frequently high school faculty that we hire to teach before or after school, that have all the credentials necessary to actually be department members at the college. So they are treated just like adjunct faculty at the college. And so making sure that we have the right adjunct faculty to teach it, and then making sure that the course is appropriate, meaning some courses have multiple prerequisites, which would really limit the number of students who might be ready for it. So we try to focus on more entry-level courses. Les, you may be able to add a few more things.
To answer your resource question, it's not only paying for the classes, adjunct salaries, and so on. For example, at York, we have a full-time director, me, coordinator, and an office assistant, secretary. So the three of us have to deal with 2,400 enrollments a year, and I don't think we can expand much anymore because we just don't have the person power to do that. And so I think it's a combination of both, paying for the classes and so on. And again, we are also very rigorous about, and our departments are very, very rigorous and about who we can hire to teach the class. And like you're saying, most of our teachers are high school teachers, but they have to have exactly the right qualifications that any adjunct would have. A master's degree at least in that area, and then come to be interviewed and vetted, and then also trained and provided syllabi and so on.
Master's, I have one of those from Hunter, master's degree.
There's a job waiting
Great.
for you.
I think I'm busy with this one. So I do have a question about the qualifications of the teachers and the assessments, but just about funding and resources. I understand money is always a question, but to what degree isn't it true that if you're spending money on the front end, you're not spending it on the back end? So if you're investing resources in high school students who are acquiring credits, you are then not spending those dollars to get those students credits when they actually matriculate into college.
I would say from a city perspective, it's an excellent investment, right? Early on to strengthen the students' college readiness, to ensure that they're not taking non-credit or developmental courses. It absolutely is. I don't think that funding model is completely in place at this point. And like Les said, we have 8,000 students enrolled. It's like running a mini college within a college. And it does take administrative support as well as the payment for the faculty.
Right. So, I mean, just focusing, I understand the human time investment, but I just kind of want to focus on the money for a second so we could do one thing at a time. And you keep, it's brought up remedial courses, for example. And my understanding is if students are enrolled in College Now or CUNY Tutor Corps, a number of the other programs, they're less likely to need those those remedial courses. I mean, we fund CUNY Start and Math Start. The City Council invests money in that. But is it your opinion that if we also invest in these College Now programs, CUNY Tutor Corps, CUNY would need less money or less investment in the remedial courses?
I don't know if we would have to do that sort of analysis and get back to you. I would concur with Joanne that there's a broader city and state level return on investment to higher degree attainment, right? Which is the long-term outcome for all of these programs. So it would certainly strengthen the city and state economy to have overall higher degree attainment, and that all of these programs support that. So it's a worthwhile investment with certainly a long-term impact. The short-term budget implications on what you're saying in terms of how the programs interrelate, I think we have not conducted an analysis that looks at it from that perspective. We'd have to get back to you on that.
Thank you.
I'm not sure about the impact from College Now into losing students who matriculate or their tuition and so on, but I think the College Now investing in a class is very prudent because one class of 25 or 30 students, the basic cost only is paying one teacher. So for $4,000 or some $5,000, you can offer a 3-credit class to 25 students. And that's a very cost-effective way. I mean, losing tuition later on, I'm not sure, but the actual delivering of the courses is very cost-effective, I think.
You know, I think there's value in CUNY and DOE kind of crunching the numbers. I mean, we're talking about real financial constraints here in New York City and real questions about the efficiency of the dollars we spend on our city agencies. And, you know, as members of the City Council who are involved in the budget, I think it would be extremely valuable to know what we are getting from our investment. And of course, with our state partners and federal partners who are funding these programs well, what is, as you mentioned, the return on investment, both short-term and then medium-term and long-term with degree attainment, but even over the course of a few years, over the course of a student's college career, how much money is being, and just from a fiscal perspective, because I think we all agree that, you know, we should be investing everything we can in our students to give them as best a future as possible. But I know you all deal with spreadsheets and dollars and cents, so we have to live in that reality, unfortunately. Going back to the teachers, so they are trained, I understand they get professional development. What sorts of assessments or oversight is there over the courses to ensure that these College Now courses are actually at college level and the students are actually performing at a college level?
So that question
I
is...
saw you smile, by the way.
Yeah,
It
it's
means you
near
got
and
an
dear to
answer
my
for this.
heart. You know, as the chief academic officer, it's really important for me, for our college, for our accreditation, to ensure that wherever we offer a credit-bearing course, it is assessed in a similar manner as all of the courses that we offer. So we have to demonstrate to our accrediting, Middle States regional accreditor, that wherever we offer the course, it's of the same high quality. So we, as Les has said, we vet the teachers very well, and I think you raised before the qualifications of the teacher. That's a step in ensuring that we are treating these courses the same as we treat other college courses. We then have the syllabi, which is consistent for all sections of the same course, whoever teaches it, and the professional development that is offered to the faculty by the course coordinator. Typically, the course coordinator will bring all the faculty together who are teaching the course and go over the elements of the course. We use the same textbook or OER. We actually do peer observations, so our course coordinator will sit in on a College Now class to ensure that it is being taught according to the syllabus. We collect assignments. If there's a common final exam, the same one is administered at the high school as well. And when we assess courses, so we assess, we might decide some year we're assessing all of our American history classes. So we sample from across the college, plus all of the high schools or other places we might be offering that course, and they're treated in the same way and evaluated the same way as college-based courses.
So you assess on more than just a high-stakes end-of-year test?
Oh, yes, yes, yes.
Write that one down, Dewey. It's a good one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And this is college level stuff.
It's college level,
Wow.
and again, I mean, that's so important. I'm sure it's important to Les. He's been, that what we're doing has great integrity with regard to that college credit. We take it very seriously.
Yeah, just to reiterate, every teacher gets vetted and orientation and interviewed by the department chair and the department discipline coordinator. They receive every teacher receives a standard, the standard syllabus used for that course in the regular college classes, standardized exams, or if the exams are created at the high school by the high school instructor, it's vetted through the chairperson and the discipline coordinator. The materials are exactly this. Everything is exactly the same. Grades are at the end are looked at. Again, there's observations, and the discipline coordinator of political science or psychology reaches out periodically to the instructors and is available to the instructors to answer questions and review what's being done.
And for the College Now program, I think you said that there's a model where it is during the school day, it's during the regular school day, and are those teachers are also paid a stipend from CUNY?
Yeah, we have that in both Kingsborough and York, so
Okay.
yeah.
We don't have as many that are actually taught in the middle of the day. That's a dual credit class. We do that for our early college initiative. A dual credit class means they get both the high school credit and the college credit. It takes more planning to ensure that we're meeting the high school outcomes and the college outcomes. That faculty member does not get paid a college stipend. They're paid as part of their regular assignment.
They
So
should be.
Yeah.
They should get more money.
It's during their regular day. This has been a source of, they would like to get more money, but it's during the course of their regular school day.
If I might, I think York College has the largest dual credit program, which we started a few years ago. We found that basically there was no difference between the instructor teaching it after the school day or during the school day. The same qualifications, the same support, the same orientation, the same is exactly given to those high school teachers who are doing it during the school day as doing it after the school day. As you probably know, the DOE school day, the school year is longer, a semester is longer than a college credit. College credit is basically 45 hours, and I think DOE is 54 hours. So, but and they go into, like in the fall, it goes into January at the DOE, but for the CUNY, it ends mid-December. So those instructors have to complete the college curriculum by mid-December, have their grades, do their finals, have their grades in, and then there's an option with the principal and the teacher to continue teaching non-credit. But I think from our experience, we've done it for a few years with we've had like 10, 20, 30, 40 classes over the last few years. It's been the same. The same with if they taught it after school, the same issues, nothing different from our perspective.
Thank you. I have one more question for CUNY, then I'll turn it over to Chair Joseph. But first, I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Councilmember Krishnan. Say hello. So one of the things that's important to this committee is really seeing CUNY's role not just in the 2, 4, 6 years, but really as part of a student's journey from youth to college to career. So again, going back to data. So you have data on the students who enroll in College Now courses, for example, how they, their demographic data, disability status, and how they fare in college compared to their peers. Do you have data on how the students who enrolled in College Now all the way when they were teenagers fared in the job market, or what their employment prospects were? And do you have that sort of through-line data?
I don't at the central level. It sounds like you might have locally. Yeah.
I do think there's been a study done at CUNY, but I don't have it.
Right, and I did reference the recent New York State study that looks at long-term employment and wage outcomes for students who took advanced coursework across the state, which presumably includes College Now. But we can follow up with you on anything that we might have that's College Now specific.
Yeah, I mean, as we're talking about impact, both on the human and on, a budget's long-term impact, if College Now programs result in students getting higher wages or being more likely to be employed, or even staying in New York City, staying in and improving their communities, I think that's a really valuable piece of information to have when prioritizing our budgets. Thank you. We'll come back, but I want to turn it over to Chair Joseph now for her questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I had a few questions. Earlier you spoke about there's a special need for these teachers that you recruit as adjuncts. What are those criterias?
So in CUNY, to be hired as a faculty member at the lecturer level, you need a master's in the discipline. At the assistant professor level, it is a doctoral degree or a terminal degree in the discipline. We apply the same criteria. As you know, many high school teachers might have a master's in education and not the master's in the discipline. And so if that's the case, we have to vet that very carefully at the department level. They may not have the disciplinary background that's needed to teach that particular college level course.
Yes, I agree at York, and we're very dependent upon the department, and they're very rigorous about keeping the same standards for hiring adjuncts to teach during the regular college day, the regular college classes and the College Now classes. And we follow, and we've had a number of teachers turned away because they didn't have the right degree.
Do you plan on, this is for the DOE, do you plan on expanding this to high school teachers in order to recruit and maintain them to teach these courses? I know, right? I know.
Yes, thank you for the question.
Of course.
This, I think, is hopefully, as you're hearing from the testimony and the questions and answers so far, certainly this is a really big priority for us, that we can expand these kinds of opportunities. That's certainly a big driver of the way in which the Future Ready NYC program has been created. And I think what's critical about how we're thinking about the formulation of that is also looking at, as Dr. Sinachan has shared, the ways in which we can help to expand those inside the school day. And I do think that does lead to questions and planning around how we ensure that we have the right capacity to do that. If you want to add anything else, Melanie.
I think one part of the testimony in terms of our New York City Public School and CUNY partnership we didn't get into as much today was just around the teacher in-service opportunities that we collaboratively develop. And so one of those was the Computing Integrated Teacher Education Initiative that launched this year. So more of our teachers K-12 being able to access a multi-course sequence that's specializing in computer science, computational thinking, and digital literacy. We've also expanded offerings to train our teachers in work-based learning, which is a component of Future Ready, which isn't always part of the basics of a teacher ed program. And so we're looking to the ways that we're better tooling and supporting our teachers, both for their classroom responsibilities in high schools and middle and elementary schools, but also ways that supports a teacher's career pathway and specialization as well.
Yeah, that's why I'm asking. We said we have about 519 high schools, right? How many of them are part of the CUNY family partnership? About how many?
Every single graduating senior works with Bridge to receive advisement and support through graduation. So we consider that a universal program. Then we have, as we said, about 470 high schools that are partnered with College Now.
Is there a goal to expand it to cover all high schools? If we look at the data, the output, how many students, the progress, and even as my colleague said, how many students who leave this program having an associate degree, having college credits, that opens opportunity. This is the pathway. So is there a plan to expand this? And again, I know it's going to go back to resource, it's going to go back to money. How is that? How are those numbers looking? And how can we expand that to almost every high school? That's a game changer. That's a pathway. And I've told the chancellor that so many times, that this is a pathway. If a lot of our students end up in CUNY, how about we create the pathway to retain them? 1, 2, they attend CUNY, and 3, the degrees that they can get and the economics. This also translates into workforce that we've been lacking here in New York City.
Thank you, Chair. I would build on the question to say that yes, I think what we also recognise just the huge value of these kinds of opportunities for young people. As you heard in my testimony, I shared the kind of 4 strategic priorities that we're really driving towards, and one of those being around expanding early college credit and credentials. We are doing this actually as part of Future Ready NYC already. So that program launched this school year. We have 34 high schools that are participating in that. They are partnered with 8 CUNY campuses. And the goals within that program, as Melanie described before, are related to really to creating and expanding opportunities, including for early college credit, including for aligned industry credentials that are connected to areas of high demand, high wage fields, and that students are getting the support to kind of move through those sequences, and that we're really reimagining their experience 9 through 12 around that, which creates that real upswing as they move into their post-secondary pathway, because they've had a sense to try out those programs, to get early college credit. And so we're starting to do that already. I think there's many ways we can think about there are currently different ways in which we can think about how we continue, like how we support these programs. So College Now, as you've heard, the numbers of students that are supported with that, we are expanding through the Future Ready program. And as the Chancellor announced, last year, plans by fall 2024 for 3 additional academic accelerated high schools.
Thank you for that. How many high school students come through our system? How many graduate, and how many plan to go to college on their own without this program?
One moment.
No worries.
So I have it, Chair Joseph, in percentages. If that's a good starting point, we can for sure follow up on making sure that we're speaking accurately. But our most recent graduation rate is 87.3%. The post-secondary enrollment always lags because of using a multitude of data to understand all of the places across the nation and across the world that our students may matriculate or transition after they graduate. And so we're relying on a previous cohort's post-secondary enrollment. And we did see that with, I believe it's the class of 2021, 59% enrolled in a post-secondary program within 6 months of graduating. And so those are our most recent. I will say that your question is about a student's aspirations versus the realities there, and that's a place that our office and New York City Public Schools are focusing on, particularly this advising and early awareness. There's a number of advising resources and strategies that we're putting in place that my colleague Kristen Harris can speak to in terms of how we ensure we're advising and informing students and supporting them in their planning that much earlier.
Thank you.
To elaborate a little bit more, so specific to advising and awareness, we have a lot of ways in which we want to ensure that every student in the school day has a highly trained staff person, at least one, right, to be able to inform their passion and their purpose after they graduate. Currently, we have a number of ways that we support that, both with the school counselors, but also we know we have a robust community of CBO partners that support schools, and our principals are engaged in that work and engaged in those partnerships. We're able to support schools, support those 519 schools with a SAM, a school allocation memo, that totals about $16 million so that they can identify the needs of their school community, their students, so that they can support a robust advisement infrastructure that doesn't rely on one person, but creates the infrastructure, creates the ecosystem so that there are multiple things happening in that school to support that student's experiences, advisement, and that connective, through line to what they're doing in their classroom, what they're doing in these experiential learning programs, and to make those informed choices.
So when they graduate, how many of those students matriculate into college versus those that had no experience at all with the CUNY system? So we got work to do, guys.
It's probably a little bit hard to say that at this point because 100% of the graduating seniors have had support through our Bridge program. So it's a little bit hard just statistically to say that there are any students that haven't had some support from the CUNY DOE partnership.
Can I build there, Chair Joseph? So just to add on to two of the places where I believe that the pandemic pushed us to innovate in new ways for our students is the College and Career Bridge program prior to the pandemic was a relatively small by New York City standards program supporting, I believe, 100 or so schools. And then during the pandemic, we shifted it to citywide, as Dr. Sunachan named, because we recognize that every single student needs somebody who is a text or an email or a call away as they're making those critical choices. And so that was a paradigm shift for us in terms of level of support. To build on what Kristen was sharing as well, we now have, through the pandemic, launched Next Steps texts and advising so that there's, anytime that school is closed, any high school student has access to one of our counselors. So this is after school hours, 4 to 8. This is Saturdays and Sundays on the weekend. So we've invested more resources, and I think we've innovated in new ways throughout the pandemic to ensure that there are more responsive ways that students can plan. We also administer a senior survey each year where we are asking our students, our seniors, to give us feedback both on the plans they have and the supports that they've had to work towards that plan for post-secondary.
Thank you for that.
I'd like to turn over to Councilmember Narcisse for questions.
Good afternoon, and thank you for being here. And I love CUNY, and it shows with all the council member. We appreciate the work you're doing. Thank you so much. And if I have a quote for you, I will say you are the heartbeat of the higher education in New York City. You're holding us, together, especially people that in lower income. that want to have the dream of going to college. I'm one of a CUNY graduate as well, so thank you. You just mentioned, I think that was you that mentioned, that the professors at the college now that teaching our young folks from high school to college for the 2-year are well credentialed. They have all their credential, they have doctorate, and the lowest is master's, right? Am I correct? So why do we have difficulty with 4-year college in our city saying they're not taking those courses, like when people trying to transfer, they're saying is level 200 to 100 to 200, while they expecting it to get 400. So can you tell me a little bit about that?
Your question may be more related to the ability for students to take their CUNY credits and transfer them
To the
into any
college.
CUNY institution. So when the general education, the pathways courses that we predominantly offer in college now, those are universally accepted across CUNY as part of CUNY's work in 2013. So those are guaranteed wherever the student took and passed that class, they are transferable to any CUNY college. It's the courses that students may struggle to transfer are sometimes specific courses to a program. And it's not just College Now to...
All across CUNY.
It's all across CUNY. And this is a priority for our current chancellor and executive vice chancellor, and our board just passed a resolution on seamless transfer to, with some pretty tight timelines, to ensure that those courses that a student takes at a community college or as part of the College Now program will transfer seamlessly to one of the senior institutions. So it's a huge issue for CUNY that they are addressing. Issue meaning it's an important area for them to address.
It's very important because it's just not I just use College Now like for the young folks, but I'm talking about regular folks that spend their money in CUNY trying to transfer, for example, or any 4 years in our city, and they were saying they're not taking them because they're not to the level that they can take in the 4 years. They have to retake the courses, and it end up to be the same curriculum, the same book, and like you said, all the professors are credentially to teach even in the 4 years college. So to me, that is slap on people's faces after they go to CUNY and they cannot be accepted. For example, if they go into a PA program from taking all those courses in the CUNY.
You're absolutely correct. So what has been put into place now is a Board of Trustees resolution which creates the policy infrastructure that's necessary to ensure that we can see this through. The work, some of this work has been done by bringing disciplinary groups of faculty together. And currently, what is happening with this policy background and infrastructure, CUNY is looking at 6 of its largest degrees: business, accounting, education, engineering, and one other one. These faculty will develop exactly what you've talked about, is how the credits taken at a community college or some one of the other CUNY colleges will transfer with credit, so these students will move from community college to be a junior upon standing.
But you did not mention health, which is the biggest things that we're dealing with right now when it comes to nursing, PA, or mental social.
Right. Yeah.
Give me a little, sir.
Some of these programs, such as nursing, because there are national and state accreditation requirements, those students do not have as much difficulty. But a general program like AS in Health Sciences, can be different from college to college. That will probably be in the second round of programs. So CUNY starting with 6 and then moving on.
I'm looking forward for make sure that we have the seamless process, because we have a lot of folks that can easier, especially when they're raising kids, to go to 2 years and trying to make it to the 4 years. Now, how many high schools do we have in the city of New York?
519.
519. So we are at 470. How many?
Sorry, 519, and then there's also 78 charters.
Okay. So I heard Chair Reader mention that, Chair Joseph, I should say, last name, 470 schools we have now. So, I mean, we have to speed up the process, because idle hands, idle minds, that's the reason that we're in the problem that we are here today in the city of New York. So we have to speed up the process to make sure we reach the underserved communities that we call quote unquote, to make sure we do better in educating our young folks. I think my time is up. So I'm gonna leave it as that. So I thank you and I appreciate your works, because I have to say thank you too, because the presentation was well organized. That's mean it's professors that delivering them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Narcisse. Councilmember Lee?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Sorry, I'm here. I know it's like the voice from above. So I just wanted to ask a little bit more, because I chair the Mental Health, Disabilities and Addictions Committee, and so I was really interested more on the disabilities piece, because what we've heard and the feedback that we've heard through so many parents is that, you know, oftentimes there is a drop when they go from high school to college or a 2-year program. And so I just wanted to know if you could speak a little bit more in detail. I know you had mentioned, a couple of you had mentioned the disabilities community, but how many students are in each of these programs, particularly for College Now and early college? And what does that handoff, I guess, the baton handing off look like, if you could go a little bit more into that?
Thank you for your question. I can speak to just give you a sense of the number of students with IEPs that are in those 2 programs that you mentioned. So in College Now, and I think actually Dr. Sunachan mentioned this in her testimony, 8.6% of students with IEPs in that program. And then in the early college initiative, so the high schools, that's 18.3%.
Okay, and that's compared to the general body students, right? But do you have also a comparison of overall in the disabilities community in the high schools, like however many students there are, you know, how many of those folks are you capturing, I guess is my question? Because I know that the numbers here are for the ones that are in your program, but then do you have a sense of how many folks that perhaps are not in that catchment area that we could be reaching out to, and what is the strategy around that?
Thank you so much, Councilmember. We can follow up with some of our colleagues to get the specifics on, like, more broadly across students with IEPs when we're looking in middle and high schools. I think for the specific CUNY programs, right, we're thinking about the citywide, you know, 20.6 of our students are students with IEPs. And so you can see that, you know, within the early college high schools, we have a fairly proportionate number of students with disabilities. In College Now, that percentage is lower and is part of a specific area of continued collaboration for New York City Public Schools and CUNY. I guess it's important to name just some of the other strategies, and we'll follow up on the broader kind of data question. We've been building on, I think, similar to the response to Chair Joseph around some of the innovation in recent years. We've shared that there is a bridge program that every one of our students graduating with an IEP, right, has access to their bridge coach. And their bridge coaches are trained to ensure that that they understand how students can advocate to receive the services that they're entitled to once they transition to either CUNY or another institute of higher education. Our bridge coaches are also trained to refer students to the appropriate services on the campus or the program that they might be participating in. We also work very closely with the Transition College Access Centers, which is working very closely with CUNY's. I will forget the name of the specific office. It's the CUNY's Office of Disability and Accessibility Services, to be precise.
Yep.
So that there are joint presentations in multiple languages for students and families about the process of transition to CUNY.
Okay.
And so those are some of the places that we've been building, in addition to the services that students are entitled to as part of age 12 up, as you may know about our schools, and certainly areas to expand on for follow-up.
Awesome. And you kind of touched upon my other follow-up question, which was around, not to add a more complicated layer, but then there's a lot of language barriers, of course, and there's huge stigma, at least in certain communities, around disabilities, as well as on top of that, you add the complication of language and how to reach out to the parents. And so just wondering how that has been, and what language, how many of the major languages do you have capacity for on the staff side as well?
So I would say that all of our transition resources that are typically translated into at least our 10 most spoken languages.
Okay.
And there's also for live events where there might be information sessions, interpretation is leveraged. I'll say one of the successes of the Bridge program is that a student can be matched with a coach who speaks their home language, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I would I'd steal an example from my CUNY colleague, Laura Myers, here about a student who got support from their Bridge coach primarily over text and Zoom in Bengali to ensure that they were able to complete what can be complex processes to transition into higher education.
Awesome. And then, sorry, just one last quick question, because I have QCC, Queensborough Community College, in my district, and I love CUNY in general, but especially that particular school because it happens to be in my district. But it is so diverse. When I was actually at the CUNY Legislative Breakfast, one of the statistics that Dr. Mangino, who's the president there, had brought up, which I thought was so crazy, was that if a student has any kind of debt, maybe credit card or whatever debt of $500, oftentimes if their family has a debt of $500, then the percentage of students that do not go to school because of that $500 debt is very high. And I wish I had remembered the number. I wrote it down, it's in my office, but just out of curiosity, because we know that a lot of the students who are coming are perhaps newer immigrants, lower income, they're not as well established. And so how, on the high school end of things, do you track that? And I know that there are definitely programs that are being offered in terms of scholarships for a lot of these programs, but how many of the folks either go through the financial, I'm assuming that the financial piece is there as part of the evaluation, but then, how does that follow them, I guess, through their transition if there's further assistance needed?
Sure, I can start. Thank you for the question, and I can pass to Kristen. I will say that in recent years, one of the important metrics that we ask school leaders and district leaders to track when they look at the health and the performance of their school or their district is FAFSA and TAP completion. And so we have been growing more sophisticated in how we think about readiness and preparation for our upperclassmen in particular in high school. I'd like to pass it to Kristen to speak more on the types of financial advising that's available.
And I guess just to add to that, if they do drop out for that reason, and if you're able to capture that data, how do you get them back in? Is there a follow through, right? Meaning not just losing them and having them drop out, but doing an active reach out to make sure that we get them back.
Sure. So I can pass the how we get back to my CUNY colleagues. But I just want to say, as far as financial aid awareness, financial aid access, we update and print a FAFSA guide every year, and it is delivered to schools in both English and in the students' home language, so they're able to take that resource and that document, and school advisors, school counselors are able to have those conversations with students and families, specifically in their home language. So it is accessible. We've also in the past had webinars and presentations in all of our DOE languages, so that is both culturally responsive approach to delivering that sensitive and anxiety-producing content, as well as being able to help them as they are making those plans. And then once they get to college and if they run into those situations, then CUNY supports them with that.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee. I want to note we've been joined by Councilmembers Ressler and Gutierrez. And next for questions is Councilmember Stevens.
Well, first off, I didn't realize that was Kristen sitting over there, so, hey girl. We worked together when we were in the trenches a very long time ago, so happy to see you here at this table. It's true, it's a true story. I know a lot of people. That's how she does a good job. She's great, she's amazing, so we actually did work before. I said it on the record too. So I just want to start off. I know Councilmember Narcisse had started off talking about like the transferring of credits, and I want to just make sure I clear something up, because I know you said like you're working on some things to ensure that when students are transferring, that the credits are being transferred, and when they're graduating from 2 years. But I want to make sure we're distinguishing that, because I'm finding more and more that yes, the credits are transferring, but students are still required to take courses over. So yes, they'll have a whole bunch of credits and they'll have all of those, but I know for a fact students, like for example, they'll transfer from Hostos, so let's say Baruch, and they took calculus and now they're taking calculus again because it's not respected or whatever. So I just want to make sure that is cleared up, because you were like, oh no, we're working on making sure credits are transferred, but that's not what the issue is. And so just want to make sure that that's cleared.
Yes, I think just to add to that clarification, as Joanne was saying, the specific challenge is transfer within majors and programs, right? So we have several years ago instituted pathways, so there's a common core general curriculum that transfers universally. This next step of work that our board has just supported us working on is really digging into at the program and major level, how courses transfer. That's really where students get hung up because
So what is the work that's being done to actually have that happen? Because what you're saying is great and fine, but how are we making sure if they're in a 2-year college and they're like, hey, this is the pathway I want to go, or this is happening, that those things are being aligned? Because there's a clear misstep and people are wasting their financial aid and money and time to now have to, take courses over and do these things. And so I want to clear it up, because it kind of sounded like semantics before.
I can assure you it is a very real initiative, and the chief academic officers are really leading that, so I'll hand it off to Joanne.
So again, the policy infrastructure was very important for us to be able to develop uniform policy across CUNY to support transfer. And you're absolutely correct. We are speaking about transferring credits into a program. And the policy actually reads that the student should transfer in as a junior on standing, so just like a native student there. I'm the provost at Kingsborough Community College, so this is very dear to me as well. I want our students to be able to transfer all of their credits towards a program, as you've said, at the senior institution. Historically, we've developed articulation agreements, which are done between colleges so that students know how their credits will transfer. But CUNY is now looking at this globally, and it is a very important initiative to the chancellor and the executive vice chancellor. So in addition to the policy, they've created these 6 working groups of faculty who will develop these pathways. And they also have put into place a transfer policy committee again, to ensure that what is put into place is supported by policy that can't be changed by individual colleges.
So how long is this going to take? Because currently we have students who are suffering from this. So.
Right. The policy, the Board of Trustees has put in a December 2024 deadline.
Okay. So we'll definitely make sure we follow up to make sure this is happening. And just, I guess my last question is just more around, like, I know we've been talking about students with disabilities, and even some of the programs we're talking about, that's typically, you know, students who are doing a lot better in schools, but I would love to talk more about like the meaty students, like they're in the middle, because I think sometimes we forget about those students and thinking about the students who get stuck in remedial classes and loses encouragement, and those are a lot of the folks who drop out and things like that. Can we talk about like what that partnership between like DOE and CUNY is to ensure that students aren't getting stuck in like this remedial roller coaster, because especially the students that I worked with for a number of years, that has been one of the biggest challenges where they can't get out of remedial math or these things. So could we talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure. As of this semester, CUNY has fully phased out non-credit remedial courses. So all students enter immediately into credit-bearing courses. Students whose high school tests or GPA indicate that they have additional skills need will get a co-requisite course, which means they'll get some additional non-credit but mandatory supports alongside those first-year courses in math or English and writing. And we have started to introduce those co-requisite courses in our College Now programs across the city so that we can then start to work with high school students even before they get onto our campuses to be fully ready for credit-bearing courses.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. I have a question here from Councilmember Brewer, who had to leave. I'm not going to do an impression of her. I'm just going to read it.
I hope not.
It would be a very good one, but I won't do it. So I'm going to read it. You'll understand why I'm saying that. As one of the founders of Hunter Science in Manhattan in the Martin Luther King Jr. High School complex, I'm a huge supporter of CUNY DOE high schools. What would your opinion of CUNY taking over most of the DOE high schools so that they were the model CUNY is describing? What would the cost be? Apology to the DOE, Gail.
Told you. A takeover.
We have not developed a cost model for that. I think we really, like, the
Just for
work
the
that we've
record.
talked about here in the diversity and types of programs and models really speaks to the ways in which we think there should be a diversity of on-ramps and access points for all the different types of students across the city. So initiatives like Future Ready are important to us because they're really thinking about those career-connected opportunities, which are different than some of the traditional College Now the accelerated pathways, those co-requisite pathways that I just talked about. So we really see the future of this work as continuing to expand all those different on-ramps to college experiences for students, and not a single model for the entire city.
So not taking over DOE schools. What is your opinion of that, DOE?
Thank you for the question. In absentia, I can also confirm
Thank
we don't
Gail.
have a cost model
thank
for
Councilman
that.
Brewer.
I would reiterate what Dr. Sunachan has shared, that actually what you've heard from both of our testimonies today and the nature of the programs that we've shared is actually that really deep partnership, and that we are ensuring that we can provide a range of different opportunities for students depending on their interests and needs. So right from the kind of early college, high school models that we've talked about in 19 schools in partnership with CUNY, and College Now, we've mentioned kind of across 470 schools, and that we have this new effort to really continue to grow the number of high schools, the number of students that are getting access to those early college credit programs, but that we're doing that in a really comprehensive way that wraps around the student advising and supports, that it's aligned to where we know there's opportunity. So we think there's a lot of potential in our continued partnership, and that program Future Ready is in close partnership with CUNY, and we've already made some public statements about our intent to grow that next year to 90 high schools.
I will pass the message along. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members watching. In 2017, CUNY evaluated the impact of early college on students who were enrolled in schools between 2006 and 2012. Did CUNY conduct a follow-up to this 2017 study? If not, are there any plans to do so?
We do have an active research agenda around dual enrollment broadly at College Now, but also many of the questions that we're asking in these new initiatives about what's the right combinations of courses, how different student populations are differently impacted by participation.
So we'll be able to get a copy of that?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Early college, high schools have different structural models, including following grade configurations from grades 6 to 12 schools, grades 9 to 12, and grade 9 to 13 schools, and 9 to 14 schools. Can you explain the reason for rationale for the different grade configurations? How many schools are in each of these configurations?
Sure. The different models really have to do with sort of the different origins of those programs. So there were a number of early colleges that launched before 2000 in association with other initiatives, the National Middle College Consortium, for example, as well as individual CUNY campus partnerships. The Early College Initiative at the central office was only formed in 2000 through, with support from Gates Foundation, actually, to create a more centralized approach and build out some of those 6 through 12 models. And then in 2011, we partnered again centrally with the Department of Education on the P-TECH model, which was, again, a specific new model that was being launched both locally and nationally. And when we launched P-TECH, that additional 2 years was really about the integration of those career experiences, industry recognized credentials, and that longer on-ramp for students, knowing they were entering in 9th grade with a diverse range of academic need. So that's really behind the origins of the different, why we have all of those different models in place.
And so what are the advantages of each? And how many, and how do they differ? And what's the differences in the models, basically?
Mm-hmm. The 10 P-TECHs have industry partners, largely culminate in applied associate's degrees, and also offer those industry recognized credentials. The 6 through 12s, again, offer that longer on-ramp to college readiness starting in 6th grade. So students are often taking their college courses sooner in their high school career, and getting up to that full associates by senior year.
Great, thank you. So how are students traditionally underrepresented in higher education made aware of early college high schools? Are these students specifically recruited?
Yeah, the recruitment for the high schools happens both through the citywide fairs and then locally. Joanne or Les can speak to, they each have partner high schools on their campuses.
They're really recruited as part of the DOE process. Do you want to, and I believe this, you can speak to the difference between the 6th grade recruitment and the 9th.
Yeah, what does that look like?
So in speaking about the high school recruitment, again, these are all public high schools, so we do have them as part of our high school fairs. In the past few years, we did have to move to virtual fairs. All of these are also made available with interpretation for families so that multilingual learners can participate. Every early college high school runs their own open houses so that they are reaching into their community, reaching out to the middle schools that they work closely with so that they are able to provide information about their program for their students. We also have on our website the myschool.nyc high school directory where we do have a tag on it where parents and families can search by early college so that they can identify schools that are closest to them or based on their interests there.
I noticed that in your data, I was looking to see that there were more women enrolling in these courses versus the males. What's behind that, and how do we plan on addressing that?
Do you want to speak about that?
I have 4 boys. I gotta know the trick.
So I'll start, and then perhaps Andrea can speak about, strategies to encourage more men in these College Now courses. Or ECI is a little bit more even because those students are full-time and in high school as well. But College Now, it is a bit troubling that we've seen this trend of a higher percentage, lower percentage of men, I'll say. And we also see it in college, and now we're beginning to see it in the employment sector. The news came out this last week. So we've tried just locally to bring men on campus in these disciplines or fields, and also bring men from our Men's Resource Center to try to connect with men. With additional funding, we could probably, something I've always wanted to do is really have a continuum between the Black Male Initiative in the high school and the college that would support these men throughout. But we're doing it kind of on our own right now, but not with program funding. Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd just add sort of university-wide, and in terms of how I think about the approach to all of the K-16 programs, the emphasis that we have on our work on near-peer mentorship across multiple programs is really a critical lever for us, that we know our DOE students need to see students that look like them, who have been successful, and that's why we employ hundreds of CUNY students annually in Tutor Corps, in Bridge, in our new advising fellows program. So that's one really kind of critical strategy for us. And the other is, again, the partnership work that we've launched on to diversify what the college prep experience is for students through programs like Future Ready. Really thinking about how we reimagine and present to students, diverse groups of students, a more compelling vision of what preparing for college looks like and feels like, one that is career connected, one that has hands-on learning components, and isn't maybe what they imagine college work to be, and really see that it's possible for them and that they can be successful there.
I know you mentioned the mentoring program. Have you ever thought about maybe having Black men mentor these young people to show them the path? And that could be part of your recruitment. I'm going to ask a question about a unique population that's near and dear to my heart. I didn't see a lot of plans in place for students in foster care. I didn't see that. Let me know if I need to come in and sit with you and work on that component. I didn't see that support. And we know a lot of our Black students go through, especially Black boys, go through the foster care system. And they usually wind up getting in touch with the criminal justice system. How do we prevent that? How do we get them into these colleges? And making sure that once they arrive into your doors, how do we support them?
I might defer to DOE colleagues on this because we don't actually
I know the DOE
that.
now has a foster care office, so they should be your extension to you.
Often when we're recruiting for programs, we're not seeing that full suite of data from our partner high school. So that's where that partnership piece comes into play, with really working with the staff on the ground to identify and recruit students.
Mm-hmm.
So wanted to give a little bit of context, and yes, that is an area that now we have an established office.
Oh, yes.
And so lots of work to do, and so this is definitely an area to continue to grow and think about, and create
No, we're gonna
more
continue
robust
building that
programming. So I
office.
appreciate that, for sure. One thing we can say about both students in temporary housing and students in foster care is we have small-scale pilots where we're trying to learn about what are the direct and very specific resources and supports we need to create within the existing ecosystem that we have. So we have our student success centers, and we're looking specifically at our students in temporary housing and how we can add and expand what currently exists into student success center campus models to add those resources, so we can look at what needs to happen and have those conversations. We do have school-based liaison for our students in temporary housing in all of our schools, and so there is somebody who is there to support that work within the newly formed foster care team, and they're providing wraparound supports for students enrolled in foster care and creating that robust support infrastructure that we can continue to share and connect with our colleagues that are doing that work.
How are you supporting them? You have a middle school component that is part of the CUNY system. How are you supporting that, at least the middle school students for now that are in foster care? I know about the office. I advocated for that. Trust me, she'll tell you. I advocated for that office to be there because it's near and dear to me. So when students in foster care have a unique, if you look at their stats, they're least to graduate, they all have IEPs, they get suspended the most, and they move around the most, and they have the highest absenteeism rate. How do we retain and how do we support them in these programs, and how do we make sure we're supporting them?
Sure. We also, within our Bridge program, we make sure that they are connected. Our Bridge coaches have training, and they are connected to the offices that support students in temporary housing and our foster care students. There is a foster care initiative within CUNY that we make sure that students are aware of, and our Bridge coaches have training about the different offices within CUNY and the resources therein. And again, we can follow up with our colleagues who are supporting that office directly to share. Our student success centers are in 6 middle schools, so we do have those resources in 6 of our
How many students you have in temporary housing that are enrolled in early college and foster care?
I would have to get back to you with that stat. I don't have it right here. Do you have it?
Mark Traeger didn't tell you.
Second.
Mhm.
Just one moment.
Chair Joseph, what we have today is the foster care student enrollment for our early college high schools. We don't have it broadly across all of our programs, but that is something that we could follow up on.
Okay,
But
how many do you have for foster care?
Yep. Thank you. I'm gonna steal her book.
This is for college now or early college?
This is for the early college.
Both of them?
For the early college schools, for the 19 early college high schools. So there's, this is for last year. There are 40. So, 40 in foster care, 881 students are in temporary housing.
How many?
881.
This is shelter.
And then 239 in shelter.
In college now, do you have that as well?
We don't have that data with
You'll
us
get back
today,
to-
but we can get back to you.
Okay, definitely.
Yeah.
All right, I'm passing it along to my colleague.
Just one other thing to add to that, we'd also welcome the chance to talk with you more about those programs and the initiatives, so we'd love to do that. I think you also asked earlier about the number of early college schools in those different structures. And so I wanted to just quickly answer that because I think we gave you some of that and not the whole picture. So there are 6 of the 6 to 12, 2 of the 9 to 12, 2 of 9 to 13, and then 9 of the 9 to 14, which is the P-TECH.
Thank you.
Following up with Chair Joseph, does CUNY have that information? Number of students in foster care? Microphone, please.
We do not. We can work with our colleagues at DOE to get, you asked for College Now, specifically students in temporary housing and foster care.
I think that the data they just provided at the request of Chair Joseph was the early college.
Right.
And they shared 40 students in foster care, 881 temporary housing, 239. Before today, was that information that CUNY had?
The individual high school would have that in the early colleges because, as Kristen said, they're working really closely with those students to support them. And we probably have that data on like an annual basis from DOE.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I can follow up with you. And
Yeah,
let you
no,
know if
please.
it's an indicator that we're looking at regularly.
Right, and those are the sorts of indicators I think we're interested in. But to me, meaning that if DOE has data and populations of students beyond what you provided in your testimony, which we appreciate, excuse me, this data as well, I think is vital to have, especially to know the impact of these programs on some of our most vulnerable students. And I think that it's data that should be included in your updated report that we're looking forward to having, right? I want to do a follow-up on what Councilmember Lee was asking, and probably to do with the bridge program. And I'm honestly a little confused. I'm hopeful that some people can provide clarity. So you speak of the bridge program. It's a coach trained to help students, and it's for students who graduate in June who are already accepted to CUNY, not already accepted to CUNY. It's students who've graduated in June.
It's for every student graduating our schools each year.
So the number you gave was 50,000 plus students graduating, and you said 199, right?
Coaches, yes.
199, so it's about a ratio of 1 to 250? One person for every 250 students, is that right? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I'll pass it off to my colleague Laura Myers, who runs the program. She can definitely describe how it works.
Yes, please, thank you. Hello.
Good afternoon. Yes, it is a ratio of about 1 to 250. And so those coaches are doing weekly outreach to students via email and text, and offering times to meet and sending resources and connecting them to listservs or resources on campus as well, so that, like, thinking about some of the students who have some vulnerable experiences, that they can be able to do some outreach and make sure that they are learning about what the supports are on a CUNY campus or across the city, like the TCAC programs as well.
So I just want to highlight one concern of mine. This program sounds great, and I'm sure it's net positive, but here's a concern of mine. As was outlined in Ms. Mack's, is Miss or Doctor? Okay, sorry. Now, I realize there are a lot of doctors on the panel. I wanted to make sure that's probably, so Ms. Mack, I'm also a not doctor, so we're in the same boat. Ms. Mack's testimony, we just passed legislation that requires the DOE to share certain information because, in part, there was this gap where we know, where CUNY, in your own testimony, was saying it's about 20% of our students probably have a disability, but we're only capturing 10%. And so what that means to me is, even with this bridge program, that the idea that the coaches are trained to help students advocate for themselves for their IEP, there are still gaps in the services that the students are actually acquiring, not just IEPs, but all sorts of counseling services and all sorts of other things that would really support in those students' success. So I'm wondering how it's possible for one student advocate, or I don't know their title, one bridge mentor, to work with 250 students. And then when you say they do all sorts of outreach, what are your numbers of students that are actually reaching back out? Because I could send a mass email to 250 students also. It doesn't mean anything if they're not reaching back out and there's no human engagement.
I think you bring up a great point, which is how we're able to have a caseload of that size, knowing that not everyone is going to write back. So you might not have 250 people responding on that day. We see that about 35% of students are having a meaningful engagement with their coach every summer. And that's a meaningful engagement means that they are using that coach to help them through the enrollment process in some way. We also see a higher than that number of students who are reading the messages, even if they're not responding. We did a survey at the end of this year where we asked the students, the 50,000 students who were served, how they got benefits from the program, and multiple wrote back to to the survey and said, I never responded to you, but I used your resources, or because of that information, I followed up with my campus and I got to enrollment, even if I never wrote back. And so I think there's a broad level of impact that we can see for all 50,000+ students, and then a deeper level of impact for those 35% who engage with their coach to work through a problem or a challenge or a question that they have about their enrollment process.
And I think this goes back to sort of some of the data that Chair Joseph was asking about students in foster care, temporary housing, and in shelter. Because to me, if I'm looking at a population, I'd actually want to do a little more effort to the students who have systemic barriers that are getting in their way. And if those data don't exist for your bridge mentors, it makes it hard to provide those services. And we know from these hearings that CUNY has things available. They have disability services available. They have whatever the single-stop successor programs are for food support, for housing support, healthcare support. But my guess is the 35% of the students who have meaningful conversations are probably the students who were more predisposed to finding those services anyway.
Our data actually shows that our greatest impact is on community college-bound students, Black and Latinx students, and Spanish-speaking students, and also students from low-income backgrounds. And so I think we see that a lot of those students that are reaching out and engaging are coming to July and they're like, did I miss my chance, right? I've graduated and maybe I wasn't as engaged in my college process as my counselor wanted me to be. And now I graduated on time in a way that I didn't expect, or now I'm thinking about this in a different way because I've graduated and I'm reaching out for support now. And so we actually see the greatest impact on some of the most vulnerable students.
That's encouraging. And when you say most vulnerable students, I would like to include, it sounds like you don't have the data now, but I think, again, we would like to see the impact on the other populations, not just language barriers, not just ethnic data, but living conditions and students with IEPs, which I'm guessing will be more systemically shared within the next 165 days, I think, is the time since the bill was signed into law. And what other steps are being taken to increase that 35%?
Yeah, I think we've seen a huge increase in our connections based on really effectively using the data that we have to be able to send messages that help a student feel seen, right? So if I am not planning to go to college, if I get a message that says, hey, did you do your FAFSA? I'm gonna disregard this text. This isn't gonna feel supportive to me. So we really work to make sure that we're sending messages in a timely fashion to the right types of students so that they're getting a message that they feel seen by and are more likely to respond to.
And does that include personal phone calls?
We do phone calls for students who haven't engaged in the program. About midway through the summer.
Who have not engaged in the program?
Those who have not yet responded, we do midway through the program a set of phone calls to try and reach out to them more actively.
Okay, I remain concerned, and you'll hear it, I want to get to Councilmember Ressler, but I do think it's an important program. I think that 35% have meaningful engagement. I think that number can be increased, especially for those other groups of vulnerable students that we've spoken about today. Councilmember Ressler?
Thank you so much, Chairs Dinowitz and Joseph. I just will say it really does make a difference to have teachers in the council, and like your lived experience and the thoughtfulness of the questions you ask is just different. So I just appreciate it. I appreciate the opportunity to listen and learn from you guys when we're in hearings together, and just as colleagues. And I want to thank the CUNY team for joining. This is a little bit off base, and I wish that Rita wasn't so busy and that we could have done this together, but I had the privilege of visiting one of my schools in my district this morning that's doing an AP African American Studies course. And it was just beyond inspiring. Of all of the, I've done 50-something classroom visits in my first year in office, and this was by far the most compelling. And I want to see us expand the availability of this course at schools across our district. But the reason I raise it is not, because I know who's sitting on the panel, is because one of the things they mentioned to me was that the College Board has never created a Latino or Latin American Studies AP class. And I imagine that this is something that, you know, if a bunch of council members make some noise about and we do some advocacy with our students, maybe we can make some progress there. But I also just wonder if there is an opportunity for CUNY to partner with the Department of Education on curricular development to think about how we, in an interim basis, because the College Board's a big national bureaucracy, think about stepping in to do more faster. And the importance of highlighting experiential education that relates to the lived experience, people in the classroom, their families, their communities, it's so important. And so I just wanted to make that as a comment. I don't know if I'm fully talking to the right people or if I'm just talking about something that happened to me today and I care about. So I apologize if it's just that, but it is. But it's real. So moving on to the purpose of today, I want to commend CUNY for getting rid of remedial education, which was a really horrible system for blocking our students from graduating from associate's degrees. And it was, in my opinion, the primary contributor to the very low graduation rates that we saw in our community colleges. And forgive me, I'm just not yet familiar with the co-requisite kind of model that you all are now employing. So just to make sure that I understand correctly, student comes in to City Tech in my district or any of our community colleges, enrolls in a co-requisite course that does not generate credits, correct?
Co-requisite courses grant credit.
They do grant credit toward graduation.
Yes.
And they are required courses that you have to take, but you were allowed to take other courses while also taking these co-requisite courses.
Right. They are all Pathways core general education courses. Alongside that credit-bearing course, you would have non-credit-bearing but required hours of additional support.
Could you clarify on how many hours of non-credit-bearing additional support somebody may be required to take?
It's going to vary a little bit by course. Joanne probably can give some examples.
So there's a couple of models of doing this. One would be to have, I'll use English composition as an example. You might have, we typically have a 4-hour English composition course that grants credit, and the class enrollment is 25. 17 of those students are eligible right away for college level. 8 are not, but they're all in the same classroom setting, same time. Those 8 have 2 hours just before or after the credit-bearing class to assist with assignments and questions and support that those students would have. The outcomes are quite good.
So I'm just trying to zero in on the requirement. So you're in a credit-bearing English composition course. There's 2 hours of additional work if
Right.
you are required to take this co-requisite that you have to complete on a weekly basis,
That's
in
right.
addition to the co-requisite course, to potentially be on a trajectory toward being eligible for ultimately graduation.
Yeah, the co-requisite means that it refers to those 2 hours that are required in addition to the 4 hours. So the student actually registers for 6 hours of classroom instruction per week. And when they're successful at the end, they still earn college credit.
And you're not permitted to take additional courses?
Yes, you can.
You are.
Up
That
to,
are credit-bearing?
Yeah.
And are the math requirements, because my recollection was on the remedial education front, math was more widely required for incoming CUNY students, remedial math education, excuse me. Is that the same, and is it a same 2-hour-ish requirement a week?
Yes, the policy, CUNY's policy required that a student must be eligible to take a college credit math course upon entry that is suitable for their program of study. So most colleges have a liberal arts math course that we have, for example, it's 6 hours. Again, but in this particular model, all those students needed the additional support, so they're all in the same class, but they earn college credit. There's typically colleges will have a liberal arts math, a statistics course, and then a college algebra type course that are built in this way.
Okay.
2 hours additional.
I think he was going to jump in.
I just wanted to add, I'm not sure if it was clear, CUNY has a proficiency index. You're aware of that the high school, based on the high school records.
Yes.
And if the proficiency index is not
Yes.
up to a certain level, those are the students who.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
Okay, you know that. I'm
Thank you. And my recollection was that it was like 3/4 to 4/5 of students coming into our associates, to our community colleges, had been required to do remedial education. What percentage of students are being required now to go through this co-requisite model?
In this fall of 22, 24% of CUNY freshmen who were New York City public school graduates were assigned to at least one course, one subject of co-requisite. So that's math or English or both.
1/4 had at least one requirement for a co-requisite. And are we yet seeing shifts in the matriculation data at our community colleges? My understanding is there's been a transition period on this, or is it too soon for you to share?
The colleges have differed in how quickly they've converted all their courses. So we're seeing promising results in some colleges already with regard to students completing. So our measure would be completion of that gateway math, that first college level math, in their first year. And so
Is that the right measure, or is it graduation rates?
Well,
I mean,
it would be a leading measure. So if they're successful in completing a
enough.
college level math or English, we know that that's a determining factor in graduation.
Well, this all sounds promising. I really do appreciate CUNY moving away from the remedial education model, which was a huge. CUNY is the place for social and economic mobility in New York City, and we had thousands of people entering CUNY every year and not getting the degrees that they need because of the remedial education model. So I'm hopeful that you've figured something out that's better, and we'll be very eager to review the data in the months to come. Thank you. And thanks to Chairs Joseph and Dinowitz.
Thank you, Councilmember Resso. I want to provide a formal invitation for you to join my committee. In fact, we had a hearing on remedial education about a year ago. You would have loved it.
I would have loved it. If you can get me off of one of the 7,000 committees I currently serve on, I would love to join yours.
7,001.
But not education.
Don't try to recruit my members. Yeah. Another data line. How many students participate in college now that are English language learners?
10.3%.
10.3%, thank you. If students are struggling academically, what type of support do you provide for that student?
Sure. Les or Joanne can talk a little bit more about what that looks like course by course. College Now programs provide tutoring, office hours, lots of wraparound supports for different types of courses, and those usually happen really in partnership with the high schools as they're building out their programs each semester.
All the instructors are paid, are hired for an extra 15 hours, at least an hour per week, extra time that they provide. The instructors provide support for students who are in need, and we also have some support workshops sometimes offered synchronously or asynchronously, where students can get help online in a way that's connected to the syllabus, online support materials that connect to the syllabi. But since most of the classes are at the high school, we don't have the tutors going out there. It's a little complicated. Yep.
Students coming back from remote learning, are they struggling more academically than before if you were to compare?
Feel free to.
I'd say in general, all our students are struggling more after remote learning, and some of it is they're just not engaging in the same way they were prior to the pandemic, probably because of the isolation. So we for all our students, we're working on so many strategies to try to engage them in the classroom, reach out to them when it seems like they're disconnecting. It's a big learning curve for some of the faculty.
At York, during the pandemic, we didn't see a drop in outcomes and success rates and so
Right.
on, maybe in enrollments a bit, and now transitioning back. Some students like the remote, want to stay. Some would rather come back to the classroom, the college. At the high schools, our classes at the high schools, they're all live because as soon as the high schools went back live. At the campus, we're slowly transitioning. There's a lot of vaccination issues and other things that we're trying to work with.
Are you providing mental support for students that are coming back? It's a lot. I was teaching during remote
it's just
pandemic too. So.
Yeah. I mean, again, since our program, all the students who are coming back were recruited by the liaisons, the college advisors, the APs, and so on. I mean, they get a lot of background support from them. And again, most are not. Very few are coming to the campus at this point. Once they come back to the campus, yes. And 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, we had much more campus support for those students. But, yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to wrap up with questions on CUNY Tutor Corps. I see big smiles, which means you must love the program very much.
Yes.
So I like it very much too. I like the idea of it. I love the idea of CUNY students getting paid to help our city and to help our students. One thing I want to point out before I ask questions is that I would recommend you take a look at the website, which lists the CUNY Tutor Corps schools. It is not accurate. And I mean, that's something that we've spoken about with different representatives from CUNY throughout the CUNY website, that there's a lack of data or the information on the CUNY website. So I would just do a little audit of that, because I spoke to some of the high schools, it's listed there, and they don't have any CUNY tutors. And they haven't for a while. So it's, if it is old data, it is very old data.
The schools change annually, so yeah, if
Then the
whatever's on the
website should
website
too.
doesn't reflect the current year, potentially doesn't even reflect last year. I don't know when it was last updated.
Just want to point it out to you. So this year, in your testimony, you said there's 100 CUNY Tutor Corps students or tutors this year, and there were 366 last year.
We have 100 tutors launching this year in a special initiative in partnership with New York City Public Schools. That's not our total number of tutors for this academic year, but just highlighting in the spirit of our partnership that we're really working to launch some new high-impact initiatives in some high-need schools, and particularly in algebra.
So are those 100 additional students, in addition to tutors, in addition to the 366 that you had, assuming the number is consistent from 2021 to 2 and 2 to 3?
I would have to follow up with you to confirm our total projected staffing for this academic year, fall and spring. The 100 is part of our total for the year, though. So our total is probably still in that 350 range, including that 100.
Okay. Yeah, no, would be good to have those numbers. 2021 to 22 is 366 tutors, and you said you will be placing 100 tutors in 21 high schools, but would love to have this year's data. And you used the phrase high impact tutoring. And so my question is, what is the impact?
In that initiative, we're really working closely with superintendents and principals to use data to identify the students who most need that small group and high dosage tutoring, and work towards specific improvement targets in algebra. I can pass it off to my colleagues to elaborate a little more on the sort of the goals across all the schools.
Firstly, just to say these will be launching soon, and so we'd be happy to come back and talk more about how that initiative has gone, with a specific focus in 9th grade algebra, just given how important that is to student readiness and opening up strong college pathways for young people. So we'll certainly be wanting to see that this small group tutoring model, that providing that instruction and additional support inside schools is obviously lifting student proficiency and helping them move through that year. And we would, as I said at the start, would be happy to share more details once that initiative has been completed.
So, for example, do you track data such as when a student has a CUNY tutor in 9th grade, they are X% less likely to take a co-requisite, or if it was a few years ago, CUNY Math Start or a remedial course? Are they a certain percentage more likely to pass their Regents exam, a certain percent more likely not to repeat a course? And I would add, just circling back to what we said about resources, therefore not likely, if they don't need to repeat a class, they don't need to take resources during high school. And that frees up the high school teachers to teach more electives, and it frees up that high school student to take more electives and move on with their schooling. So is that any of that data tracked?
We haven't done longitudinal studies of tutor core like that. That would look at students who are tutored, then impact upon college matriculation. We look within the year that students are tutored at individual course pass rates or Regents pass rates, depending on the course they were tutored in. So we're happy to follow up with some of that data over the last few years, but we do not have we have not done longitudinal studies on tutor core.
Right. I mean, I think it's an important question to know. Students who had a strong start, you mentioned specifically math, that a strong start in 9th grade algebra, it would be good to know if those students then did not need to take those co-requisite remedial courses 4 years later. I mean, I think that's a really important piece of information. And of course, breaking it down by disability status, L status, foster care, temporary housing, shelter, to see the impact of high dosage tutoring. And again, getting back to the numbers, would like to know how many of them, how many tutors there are, and then why this program, seems successful according to you, what efforts are being made to expand it, and to expand it to more high schools. Is that incumbent upon the high school? Is that an effort of DOE Central? Is it CUNY Central? Is it an individual CUNY campus reaching out to high schools and sharing their tutors? I mean, talk a little more about how you're looking to expand it to more CUNY students and to more high schools.
I think the partnership that we have with the 100 tutors this spring is part of that work in sort of aligning priorities with DOE and seeing how tutors can be core to their academic acceleration strategies. I think my DOE colleagues can elaborate on a broader set of tutoring strategies that are in place. They are also working with CUNY Reading Corps, looking at supporting reading and literacy across grade levels, and a whole range of other tutoring partners. Tutoring is most effective in those very small groups and in high dosage, and so given the size of the system, we do think it's effective for our DOE colleagues to have a range of partners at the table for tutoring. That tutor core is an important part of that strategy, but not the entirety of it.
Right. Well, let's just focus on tutor core for now, so we can, do one thing at a time. And I would just ask real quickly, what is a proper ratio for high impact or more individualized attention? What is CUNY and DOE consider that proper ratio?
I mean, we're trying to keep the group size between 3 and 5 students in a small group for tutoring.
Okay. For some reason, I wrote down the ratio of 9.3 to 1. I forget why. I think I did some division. Yeah, 3,399 students divided by the 366 tutors, unless there's other 9.28 something. But I rounded.
So that's probably not represented. When a tutor is in a school for a 4-hour work session, they're probably rotating through different groups of students in that time.
Thank you. Okay, so going back to the previous question about, more tutors and engaging more schools, making this opportunity available to more schools.
Thanks for the question. I would just just share again just some of the initiatives that actually are underway this year that represent expansion. So that specific initiative that we've just been talking about with the 100 tutors in Tutor Corps that's focused on algebra, that's new.
Okay.
And so that is an expansion for this year. And as you've shared in your questions, we'll obviously want to make sure we're evaluating the impact and understanding the impact of that and what that might look like in the future. I also mentioned at the start that that we're also more broadly across New York City Public Schools starting the planning phase of a new high-impact tutoring initiative, which is funding tutoring in kindergarten through to grade 2 literacy and grade 6 through grade 8 math. So those are two new strategies that are underway in this school year.
That's wonderful. I would have loved to have some tutors in my classroom, some CUNY students. And I bet there are CUNY students out there who would love to spend time teaching in their community, making some money, which is great. And how is this program being advertised to CUNY students? And is there a limit on the number of seats that are available?
Yeah, we work closely with STEM departments and career offices on our campuses to actively recruit, attend career fairs on campuses and career events, and then also social media and connections again to those STEM departments that are working with their students in the majors. And we, I think, consistently have more interest than we have available jobs in a given semester.
Do you know how many students apply for CUNY Tutor Corps?
Oh, I don't. I can get you that in an average semester, the application to hiring ratio. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I certainly be interested because that would also tell us, how many more seats, how many more tutors we should be hiring, but also if there are not that many more than 366 students applying, it would also tell us how good a job the departments, the individual schools, the professors are doing in advertising this. And this has also been a sort of theme throughout these committee hearings, that there are incredible programs, incredible initiatives that CUNY engages in. And it's very often the case that students don't know about them. And that's also something that we've heard in the education committee, but I heard a little more at CUNY because I'm a little more involved there. And so I really am interested to know what that advertising, what that outreach looks like, because I worry that we have a lot of students out there, CUNY students, who would be thrilled to tutor, and they just don't even know this program exists. And so I would be looking forward to getting that information. With that, do you have any other questions?
Just a quick question on parent engagement. How does that look? Like, what's the engagement? And when you do meet parents, is language access available for them? How's the parent engagement? You could just give me an idea as to.
For College Now, the campus staff are working closely with the high school staff to schedule recruitment events and awareness events, often with parent-teacher associations or with guidance counselors. So they're really working with the high school staff to make sure there's a full range of language or translation services available and representation and developing those kinds of resources. I don't know if my campus colleagues would want to elaborate on, what that looks like in more detail.
I think you represented it well. We host parent days when the students and parents come to find out more, but it is done in collaboration with the guidance counselors at the schools.
At York, we regularly send out our coordinator to parent evening sessions.
And PTAs?
But also our liaisons at the school are very well trained and very loyal to the college and very understanding of all the ins and outs, and so they present College Now as well at all their parent conferences and parent initiatives. So yes, we are reaching out quite a bit.
Chair Joseph, could I
Sure.
add there?
Sure.
I think that some areas of recent investment, and I agree with what Councilmember Ressler said about having educators on the panel. Appreciate both of you and on the committees. With family engagement, the build out of the New York City schools accounts has been something that we've overseen what the college and career planning portion of that looks like, so that as early as kindergarten, a family can start to get, right, and first it's Save for College information, right? I have a first grader, so last year we were in the Save for College year, all the way through to 12th grade, what information is available there. With the development of the messenger up to parents as well, there's huge potential. We've already been able to push messages about Save for College, and really think that that's the beginning of how we can get more information accessible to families at the time that they are available to receive it in the language that is most accessible for them. So those are two areas where connecting that broader like communication infrastructure to college and career opportunities is an area that we're building and growing.
Thank you, because some of these kids some of the students are first generation going to college, who ever step a foot in college. So we want to make sure that we empower the parents. They have the right toolkits to help their children navigate the system. So thank you for that.
I would like to thank this large panel for coming today, for your testimony. Chair Joseph and I are very much looking forward to that extended data that we've requested to help address some of the gaps and really support the programming that helps both our CUNY students, our high school, middle school students, and really our city as a whole. Thank you. We'll be calling up our next panel in a second. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Our first panel that will be coming up is Salimatu and Danielle. And two things before we begin. I want to highlight that CUNY and DOE are still here, and they will be listening to your testimony. And second is, before you speak, just make sure you state your full name for the record. Okay, Salimatu, you may begin, and please again state your full name for the record.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Salimatu Doumbouya. I am a student at the New York City College of Technology, where I am also the student government president. I am the chairperson of the CUNY University Student Senate, the CUNY student trustee, and I live in Harlem. Very interesting conversation today. Almost makes me want to revise my complete testimony because I learned a lot as well. So I want to say that I believe that it is necessary to show the importance of building a solid road to higher education from public schools and ensuring that funding is provided in fulfilling that vision. However, it is equally essential to the current students and prospective students of the City University of New York that we receive adequate funding to help us be the driving force in the workforce across the industries in our city and state. I would also like to say that the University Student Senate fully supports the K-16 initiatives to help students enter our university. But at the same time, higher education is a vital lifeline for all communities across our great university. And those students who enter our university need support to stay in the university. In multiple meetings I've had with the students of the University Student Senate that is composed of student government leaders from all 25 campuses, we are about 80 students, we did focus on this issue a lot. But our conversations usually go into when we have these students, how do we retain them? The idea of retention is really important. I have done CUNY Tutor Corps, and I have a lot of my peers who are also tutors in CUNY Tutor Corps. And as much as the students care about algebra, they want to learn, they also want to know, how is college going? How is it like to be a college student? And this personal experience that we share with them is really valuable as much as what we share with them in terms of the curriculum, in terms of what we're teaching them. So I have a few recommendations in how all these different initiatives that are great could be better. As a student myself, and in all the students that I've interacted with, because I've also been a mentor at BMCC because I was in a community college, I have dealt with students in College Now. In that great program where I was in, I have never heard about a lot of them, although I know that CUNY is making a lot of efforts to bring them out there. So I would say that it is important to provide some synergy in how these programs are administered. I understand that it's 25 campuses, it's a lot of people, it's a lot of bureaucracy, but how do we create something constant where wherever you go, you know this is the one system that you follow, this is where you find College Now, and this is how it works. I think that it will be very valuable because from being a transfer student and dealing with other transfer students, you can see how experiences can vary a lot. My second recommendations will be that we cannot deal with CUNY pre-pandemic the way we're dealing with CUNY and education in general after the pandemic. Why would students go to CUNY? I know that the conversation enrollment is really important. We're wondering why students are leaving, but it's maybe because students are having different priorities now. As much as it is important to train students to enter the job market, maybe the students of today want to build a new job market. Maybe they want to become entrepreneurs. How is CUNY engaging in that? In my role, I've had multiple conversations with the CUNY administration because they focus a lot on career readiness, and that is a big thing. And the last thing is going to be the conversation of campus climate and student leadership. We've always believed, and I think it is still the case, that when you're part of a community, you thrive. So understanding how the creation of different, more leadership programs that we're involving at the same time in all of these different programs can benefit students not only to come to CUNY, but also stay in CUNY and enjoy their experience so that they're not just entering a hole where they are not going to become the best version of themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a follow-up. You said there synergy and constancy. Are you speaking about, and then you said College Now.
Mm-hmm.
So are you speaking about a synergy and a constancy between different high schools or just CUNY in general?
Yes, speaking about CUNY in general, right? Because when a student is in high school and then he comes to CUNY, I've mentored students like that, oh, I was in College Now, right? Which is great. But I think that when I talk about consistency, I mean how these different programs are administered everywhere. Like College Now in one place looks like College Now in another place. And the support that you get when you come from College Now to another campus looks the same as the support you would get when you come from College Now to another campus.
So you've seen, as a mentor, you've seen sort of the tail end of it, right? Not how it, I guess you see different students from different high schools in different boroughs who've done College Now in different CUNYs come in and they have different experiences. And do you get a sense that there are certain schools that are doing it right and then there are certain schools that have room for improvement?
I think that all schools have room for improvement and all the schools are doing their best. But I think that facilitating a conversation and studying best practices on all the colleges to bring this consistency would make things even better.
I love hearing that you're speaking about something that we've spoken about consistently, not just today, but throughout the past year at these hearings, which is a sort of consistency throughout the CUNY system and what role Central has in making. You heard a number of council members talk about even things like transferring credits, which you would think would be a, excuse me, an important big initiative that's already addressed, but what seems like so tiny is so impactful, and in the case of credits, negatively impacting a lot of students. And so from your perspective, in the College Now program could use more centralized coordination from CUNY.
Probably, yes. College Now and multiple other programs, not only in this context, but also other contexts. I think it's important that we study all of these different things and see where we could bring some synergy, because I understand the challenge in creating consistency in 25 different institutions with all different kinds of people, bureaucracy, and rules, and even the different campuses always focus on different things. But I think there is room where we could find the points of agreements and have some little points of central effort.
I'm looking right behind you at CUNY and DOE.
They are here.
They're here, and I know they're listening, and we're taking notes.
You mentioned something about campus climate. What did you mean by that?
I mean how you feel when you are on a CUNY campus with your peers. Some students are isolated. We spoke about mental health multiple times here. Some students, isolation, they feel like they don't belong, or they feel like they cannot create a community, right? CUNY does a great job focusing on curriculum. Student Affairs does a great job on focusing on campus life. But I think at maybe some points these two things can come together.
Maybe a holistic approach.
Yes.
You have students that come on campus, which we know are living in shelters.
Yes.
They are facing food insecurity. So how do we bring all of that together I've always believed in a holistic model, nor the cookie cutter model either. I don't believe in that. So what can we do to support that?
CUNY has the resources, that's for sure. CUNY is investing in making sure the resources are there. The big challenge now stays, how do students find out about them? And are students taking advantage of these different resources? In the spaces I have been on with other people, I've always noticed that students who engage in extracurricular activities tend to know more about all of these things. They tend to be more engaged, they tend to be more in tune with what's offered to them in terms of support. So maybe CUNY can tap into that resource, working with students to make other students thrive, which is being done already, but I feel like we could do it in a larger scale.
You know what they could do? I'm a broken record. You can invest like a few $100s in advertisements on social media or on search engines.
Didn't you see the CUNY ads in the subway lately?
The what?
The CUNY ads on the subway.
New York City Public Schools need to do that.
Yeah,
I
see them everywhere.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm just saying.
I'm just saying the one train doesn't come down to City Hall. What I'm saying is that CUNY, with whatever advertising budget, this has also come up at many hearings, spending money on different avenues like social media. I know they mentioned a social media account, but social media advertising is a relatively inexpensive way to target students and let them know about the programs, because you're sharing something which we've heard a lot about, that a lot of students don't know about these programs which you acknowledge are pretty good. If only more students knew about them.
Yes.
So this is where we come in with the awareness, access, and equity. If we want to do all of that, awareness has to be number one. So maybe, I don't know, elementary school, we did robocalls. We call everybody something until you pick up the phone. Or we text you. Or there has to be a way, a creative way as to how do we get those students to come and how do we retain them. I've always felt like, even in coming into the middle school programming, the early college, the College Now, how do we retain them and how do we get them to move over to become matriculated students? So maybe we can use some of those best practices to have those students retain and capture that audience that you need to capture. Maybe roundtables, maybe make it one-on-one. Everything doesn't have to be on social media. We are living the new norms now. Things are not done. We don't want to go back the old ways. We always say that they do not work. So maybe we need to go grassroots and make it and engage those students that we need to engage.
Some elected officials know how to do campaigning. Knock
Yeah,
doors, make
knock
phone
doors.
calls.
I know a CUNY
stand
president
on the
that
street
does
corner.
that. She knocks doors and she goes to the students' homes.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say who she is.
I'm glad my professors never did that. I'd like to move on to Danielle.
Thank you, and thank you for your testimony. Thank you for having me. I'm Danielle Guindo. I'm the Executive Director of Read Alliance. Read Alliance is actually submitting a request for $100,000 to the City Council Initiative funding to support our critical dual impact program, which serves the 5 boroughs of New York City, and we have for 22 years. In FY24, we plan to enroll between 1,200 and 1,500 kindergarten, first, and second graders who are striving to read on grade level and employ between 600 and 800 teen leaders as their paid individual literacy tutors. Over the 22 years of our history, data has shown that after just one program cycle, elementary school participants average more than a full year's growth in foundational reading skills. And the teens not only gain meaningful paid work experience while they're in high school, but they also participate in structured teen leadership enhancements that promote post-secondary success. In FY23, Read enrolled 548 striving readers, and it has enrolled 548 striving readers to date up to this point, and employed 354 unique teen leaders in all 5 boroughs of New York City. We're partnering with 27 different elementary schools, more than 100 different high schools, 17 from which are core partners, where we recruit more than 20 teens every year. By the end of this year, we will have enrolled at minimum 1,280 early elementary students in after-school and summer school high-dosage tutoring programs. But during the fall of 2022, we began planning with urgency for a pilot that aims to concretely connect Read Alliance teen leaders' work experience with opportunities for higher education and post-secondary experience working in a classroom. As you know, we all know in this room, the value of BIPOC educators brings to students of color that they teach, despite rampant teacher shortages. So this initiative will help young people, especially young people of color, identify and pursue the educational and career opportunities aligned with their high school experience as a Read Alliance teen leader. As part of this work, we've connected with and nurtured relationships with high school, college, and community-based programs focused on equity and access and post-secondary pathways around education. One of the most robust relationships to date has been with the College of Staten Island. We have a very large footprint on the island, and so it makes a lot of sense to work with them to ensure that we're providing a pathway to teaching careers for those students. And really exciting development just 2 weeks ago, 16 Read Alliance teen leaders from all 5 boroughs of New York City started taking Hunter College's Urban Education College Now course on Saturdays. They were identified from a cohort of teens who have articulated an interest in exploring a career in education. There was a substantial enough interest in the course that Hunter College added actually a separate section dedicated to Read Alliance teen leaders so that they could work in the Read Alliance program during the week and take the course on Saturdays. So thank you very much. I'd like to add that I'm also the daughter of 2 public school educators from New York City and the mother of two public school students. So
But are they reading tutors?
they are reading tutors and math tutors.
And you've done your job. So how do you, I'm interested to know how you recruit students.
Teens you're talking about, or the children?
The teens.
We build relationships with the high schools that are located near the elementary schools that we're partnering with, and we find, the advisors, the nonprofits working in the building, the APs that can be our liaison and advocates that either facilitate like an information session or handpick students they say they think this is going to be a good opportunity for them.
So then ask the question in the wrong order. How do you pick elementary schools?
Mostly word of mouth. I mean, we really do want and idealize a situation where we would have more of a cooperative relationship with the district leaders. But for the most part, it's been word of mouth, schools that we've historically worked with over the course of time. A lot of our partners are decades long, but some are relatively new, and they come to us through different avenues. We're part of the Pinkerton New York City Reads initiative, And so that relationship with Link and other nonprofit partners that are all working in South Jamaica, East New York, and East Harlem helps to develop relationships with schools in those districts that express an interest in being a part of it. That's one example. There are many other avenues that schools can come to us.
How are the students trained?
They receive initially 4 hours of training on a leveled phonics-based curriculum. So they learn not only, just basics of phonics, and some of the teens relearn that themselves, but also the strategies around implementation, behavior management, ways to engage the young child, and also data collection. So we collect data, we train the teens to collect data every single day, and there's always a young person who's called a senior teen leader who's a little bit more experienced and trained to ensure that the data collection is meeting standards. And so we also have refreshers if we have students that come to us new, or we notice that there may need to be a refresher of some kind. And in addition, we've been fortunate enough to be able to build in 4 additional hours on average per student so that they could be paid to participate in complementary programming. So that's career exposure, college readiness, leadership development, and other enrichment opportunities. So it's not only that they're paid for the training, the work, but also their participation in other enrichment.
You should add dyslexia screening in your future.
So we're looking into that. We've met with, the name escapes me, but there is a screener that is funded by one of our partners, funding partners, that we did look into. And one of the advantages that we've always had is that because we're embedded after school and we employ teachers in our program, so we work really closely with the teachers to ensure that the teachers are helping to identify students that might have other learning differences, including dyslexia. But that is something that we're thinking about, like how to integrate in a way that would make sense, for teens to help with.
A future educator, that should be
That's
one
right.
of the skills they
You
have.
got it.
Thank you.
got it. We are in we're at PS 161X, where I know the Literacy Academy Collective is also piloting, and we partner with them as well. We don't overlap, we don't serve the same kids, so we work in the same sandbox.
Wonderful, thank you.
How much you pay the
Minimum wage at minimum, and then the senior teen leaders earn $2 or $3 more, and then we have an avenue to continue progressing. So we have other positions that have helped us with our expansion where the teens continue to earn more, even while they're in college. They might earn $21 or $22 an hour to help oversee a program if one of the staff can't be there that day. So at minimum, it's $15 an hour.
And do you have any, I know you mentioned that you have students going to the Hunter College Now program, but do you have any sort of partnership or information sharing from CUNY to your students? So for example, just as an example, I imagine that students who tutored in high school may want to then become CUNY tutor course students.
That is, I didn't read my whole testimony, but yeah, we are developing that relationship so that if we do have students that are part of this pathway that enter one of the CUNY schools, that they are led to the tutoring corps as another avenue to earn while they're in college. I mean, that's not happened yet, but that is absolutely something we've started.
Love to hear it, and I think one of the challenges being, as I mentioned earlier, this, it was mentioned on this panel actually, there's always some confusion about what's done centrally and what's done by each individual college. That's even CUNY Central is sometimes not sure what's them and how much autonomy to give to colleges, but it sounds like the CUNY Tutor Corps program is sort of, it made recommendations by each individual campus. And so I'm sure as part of your challenges is going to be the relationship both with CUNY Central and with each individual university.
Right, there may not be, I mean, what we're noticing is obviously we want to make sure that we are, for this particular Pathways initiative that we're developing, we want to make sure that there's a connection to CUNYs that have an education school, that we want to simplify it that way. Obviously, we're specifically focused on ensuring that the pathway is paved for those who are interested in pursuing a career in education. But obviously, we are helping, there's been now I think it's 22 or 25 young people that we've provided scholarships for when they were juniors so that they could participate in the Ascenders program where they're paired with a college readiness advisor one-on-one. one, where, they wouldn't otherwise have gotten, it's 1 to 250 students. So not everybody has the access to a college advisor, and we want to make sure that we help that along. Even though, college access is not our lane, but we have access to the teens and can help them get the help that they need if we understand that that's a need of theirs.
Thank you. Thank you both so much for your testimony. You can clap, it's all right. They did well. I'd like to call our next panel. Our next panel is on Zoom. Nazria Nahar. And we also have on the list Brooklyn Adams, although Brooklyn does not appear to be logged on. So the first speaker will be Nazria.
Good afternoon. My name is Nazria Nahar, and I'm a freshman at Baruch College. I'm here as a young advocate alum of Young Invincibles. I want to thank the City Council, especially the Committee on Education and Higher Education, for the opportunity to testify at today's hearing. I graduated from a Queens public high school that offered both AP and College Now courses. Access to these college credit courses has played a big role in my pursuit for a college education. As an immigrant student unfamiliar with the public school system, I was uninformed about these opportunities to earn college credit through dual enrollment and AP courses. I had to go above and beyond to learn about the available programs through online research. Without the help of a guidance counselor, I was left alone and stressed. Had I been contacted by a counselor, I would have had the opportunity to challenge myself and earn more college credit. Similarly, I have many immigrant peers who had also experienced a lack of contact, resources, opportunities, and information. School teachers and administrators must actively extend information to students in an inclusive manner to ensure that they're well informed. Moreover, there were barriers to my placement within AP and College Now courses. Despite having met the prerequisites, I was unable to join a class due to a lack of AP classes and available seating. Because I had learned of these classes later, I was barred from taking my desired advanced coursework. It was usual for a traditional student to face the barriers I had. In the 2 AP classes that I took, I had to self-teach, find resources through College Board, and buy materials to ensure that I would pass the test and earn the college credits. The teachers teaching AP classes were often under-resourced to teach the AP course materials, and were limited by funding restraints to provide us with extra test prep material. It is imperative that high school teachers be trained and equipped with resources needed to teach AP and college level courses. Fortunately, a high school teacher of mine also taught a College Now course offered at my high school, and she informed me of the requirements and demands of the courses. Additionally, my school offered College Now courses on the school campus, which aided me greatly in earning crucial college credits that helped me fulfill my college elective requirements and other prerequisites. It has helped me financially, saving money from not having to buy material for these classes and giving me the time to work part-time alongside college, as many CUNY students frequently do. The high school to college transition can be overwhelming with the lack of college readiness and financial instability. Lack of academic readiness and insufficient financial aid has been cited as 2 of the major reasons behind college students dropping out. It is crucial to keep College Now classes and AP courses funded and accessible to students to help in their pursuit of a college education, as it helped many, including myself, in being college ready. We must also expand the availability of classes and lift barriers such as limited seatings that keep students from the opportunity to enroll in such courses. I urge City Council to understand the benefits of having accessible College Now courses on high school campuses, as it gives students the opportunity to earn college credit without the barriers of transportation and food insecurity. Thank you.
Thank you. I first want to apologize. I misread one of the letters, and thus I mispronounced your name, and I apologize for that. It sounds like you worked extremely hard to be successful and to be where you are. Did you say you were at Queen? I want to make sure I heard you. You said you were at Queens College?
No, I graduated from a Queens public high school. I'm currently at Baruch College.
Oh, you're okay. So I didn't hear. Okay, so Queens Public High School. Now you're at Baruch, and so you laid out a lot of issues and room for improvement. And one of the things you mentioned was sort of outreach and support for students in, either during high school and then transitioning to college. Did you have a bridge peer mentor?
I did not.
You did not. And may I ask what year you graduated high school?
Yes, I graduated in 2022.
Oh, congratulations, you just graduated.
Thank you.
So we heard earlier testimony that all high school seniors had some sort of outreach provided to them from July through September before to help them, guide them through the process of registering for classes and other programs that are available. So you didn't utilize the service, or you never received a text message or an email or a phone call about the
I did. So the Bridge Mentor, I think now that I'm thinking about it, I did get a text message from someone named Tanya, and it was
say
a
their name.
transition. And it was a the struggles I faced was during my junior year and like about College Now courses, but the struggles was not getting admitted into college, like the application process. Because I remember getting helped about SYAP and if I needed help in transitioning from a high school environment to a college environment. My problems were strictly with College Now courses and AP courses during my junior year and senior year for my high school coursework.
And it was okay. It was getting, and I just want to make sure here, it's getting into the College Now courses and getting all the information about them from your Queens high school.
Yes.
And so what I'm hearing, I just want to clarify that you think that the DOE needs to ensure that each individual school is informing students of all the opportunities that are available to them, particularly College Now.
Yes.
Okay, so it's I want to thank you for that. I think that's a sort of theme that we're hearing, and I'll just repeat again: all of these programs that are really impactful, and everyone acknowledges they're good, but if no one knows about them, they're kind of useless to a lot of the students. Chair?
What do you think they should be doing differently to improve the program?
I believe for me, the only reason I knew about College Now courses was because one of my teachers who was teaching another regular high school class was teaching a College Now course. So she personally informed me of a College Now course, and that's how I started doing College Now classes. I had friends who did not know about College Now courses because often they would send emails, and we know students, high school students, they don't usually read emails. They should be informed about it during classes. Like a teacher should inform the students, we offer College Now courses. And this is how you enroll into one, and this is what a College Now course demands of you.
So you think if there had been either a presentation to you from okay, like a person-to-person in class, captive audience presentation, that would have spoken to you, and that would have been a way to transmit information to you that you would have been receptive to and would have gotten, right?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other ways you would improve specifically these things like College Now and the CUNY initiatives?
I think making College Now accessible on high school campuses is very important because I did have an opportunity to enroll in a College Now program in Queens College, but I was not able to do so because of the transportation. It took me an hour and a half to go to Queens College, even though I lived in the borough. So it would be at 7 in the night when I would be coming back from a College Now course because it would be after school. It's an additional coursework. And that is not realistic. And so I feel like I was able to do it because it was on my high school grounds that a College Now course was done. So that should be made more available because I know most College Now courses are offered on community college grounds and college campuses instead of high school campuses.
No, all right, thank you. That was, I think, very helpful suggestions, very informative. Thank you for your testimony. I just want to try one more time. Is Brooklyn Adams logged onto Zoom? Is there anybody else on Zoom who's interested in testifying? If so, please virtually raise your hand. Okay. All right. Well, I want to thank everyone. I want to thank CUNY the DOE, everyone who testified, especially our students, and my co-chair for this hearing, Chair Joseph. I'm not sure there's anything more important than providing quality education and quality supports for our children, our future of our city, and making sure that we have a holistic approach, that we are connecting all age groups, and ensuring we provide every opportunity for success to them is of paramount importance to me, to this council, and to the future of New York City. And we look forward to working with CUNY and the DOE to make sure that these programs are expanded and are successful so that every student has every opportunity to succeed here in New York City. And with that, this hearing's adjourned.